Losers Shaun and Ed fight to save their lives and those around them when faced with a zombie apocalypse. They hole up in the only place they know, the Winchester pub, using anything at their disposal to fight off the growing zombie horde. Edgar Wright's Rom-Zom-Com directorial debut established him and Simon Pegg as the hottest new talents of the new millennium. Hilarious, scary and endlessly quotable, Shaun of the Dead is possibly the best British film of the last 20 years. My name is Luke, and player 1 has entered the game, Matt.
Cornetto.
And player 2 has entered the game, Westy.
Pete! I said leave him alone!
Someone died and made all the right movies, fucking King of the Zombies. Fuck a doodle doo. Hi everyone. Thanks for tuning in to All the Right Movies, a podcast stuffed full of references to classic and hit films.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about a film that we've been looking forward to doing for quite a while. We've referenced it in a number of episodes in the past and it's finally here. It is Shaun of the Dead.
Lovely.
Yep. And before we exacerbate things, it's time to talk about Patreon for a moment.
What does that mean?
To make things worse, Westy.
Oh, right. I thought Patreon. I was trying to lead you in to explaining it. But yeah, fine.
Oh, fuck.
I'm not a fucking
Never
idiot.
the cue on that
one. Jesus.
Great. If you like All the Right Movies, there are a load of reasons why you should sign up to be an All the Right Movies Patreon supporter. Firstly, you get access to our podcast archive. The most recent 20 episodes, like the one that you're listening to right now, are available to everyone, and the rest are only available in our archive. So this is episode 66, which means there are 46 episodes that you can't get anywhere else if you sign up to be an ATRM Patreon supporter. Secondly, there are 41 additional podcasts that we've created exclusively for Patreon. So there's 87 episodes there already, and that builds every month.
Yep. Wow.
Big.
Yeah, huge.
Your support also keeps us going, allows us to bring you all this content, and on top of that, you can ask questions which we'll answer on the show, vote for which films that we cover, and rate the films that we cover as well. How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Oh, I knew that was coming in. I was wondering when it was going to be, because I've been trying not to say it. So
I was doing the same. I was like, Luke's not going to pass that up, surely.
Yeah.
So any support you can offer would be amazing, guys and gals. So go to patreon.com/all the right movies to support us. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Any support is hugely, hugely appreciated.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. Thank you.
Back to it then. Today we're talking about a comedy, quite rare for the podcast, so there's bound to be laughs aplenty. Westy.
Bound to be.
Why do you want to talk about Shaun of the Dead?
I went to see this at the cinema in 2004 when it came out, and it's stayed with us ever since. It was one of them films that just kind of made sense to me. I just instantly got it. It was my kind of humour. It was my kind of tone. I understood the Romero zombie films. I understood what it was sending up, what it was trying to do. It's got really lovable characters. It's got really clever direction. It's arguably one of the most important British films of the last 20 years, I think. I mean, for the impact that it had and how it chose the culture and how it chose the culture really, really well without it being, miserable. It's not train spotting. It's not exploring that type of thing. It's like saying, this is it. Yeah, it is quite boring. This is where we are. This is where we're from. This is the look at British culture. And it isn't Shane Meadows doing it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I found that really refreshing at the time. I thought it was great to see a British film that wasn't down and dour and just about this like miserable, overcast country that we live in, and it was all of a sudden one of them ones where you go, have you seen Shaun of the Dead? Yeah, I fucking get it. And then when you've seen it and your mates have seen it, like how many times have we quoted this film when we've been out? Every single fucking time. You'll find a line in this for any part of the night out, and that's what I absolutely love about it. It's become ingrained in the culture because it's from the culture. So yeah, it's a really good film. I really, really love it. It's loads and loads of fun, and yeah, can't wait to talk about it.
Excellent. Thanks, babe.
Killed us off.
There it is.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I'm just glad we get to talk about Edgar Wright. I think he's a name that we needed to get around to,
Agreed.
Sooner rather than later, so it's good to finally talk about him. But this one, it's an interesting one for me because I think I came at this probably the different way around to a lot of people. I'd never seen an episode of Spaced before I saw the film. It had been recommended to me by friends, so I knew it was highly thought of, but this is obviously back in the days before streaming, so if you missed it on TV, God knows when you were going to get to see it. So, and I'll be honest, I kind of had low expectations because of that. You know, I'd seen the trailer, I think, once. I saw the title, and it was one of those films where I was off all day and I just needed a film to kill the afternoon. I thought, oh, well, that'll do. You know, it looks like it's a spoof. I'm sure there'll be a few chuckles in there. And then it got to a certain point in the film where I thought, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. And then it got to another point of the film later on. I thought, you know what, if I had like the slightest bit of filmmaking talent, this is exactly the type of film I want to make. Brilliant. So, yeah, ever since then, it's been a real favourite of mine. It's one I go back to on a very regular basis. So, yeah, very, very excited to get stuck into it.
Well, I want to talk about this film because I loved it when it came out. It sounds the same as you guys. Loved it on first watch. Like, funny, smart, it knows the genre inside out, and it's got great affection for it. We mentioned it before, but a horror comedy, well, I certainly think a horror comedy is a really tricky genre to pull off. Yeah. And I think this is up there with American Werewolf. We talked about that a few months ago. Yeah. It pulls off that great balance of tones. I return to it a lot, regularly. It's got huge rewatchability, and I always get something different from it each and every time that I watched it. Yeah. There are loads of standout elements, but the writing is outstanding. Performances and direction are top-notch, and like you said, Matt, it is about time that we talked about Edgar Wright. Yeah. Shaun of the Dead was co-written by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, directed by Wright, produced by Nero Park for Big Talk Productions and Studio Canal, distributed by Universal Pictures and released on the 29th of March 2004. Filmed on location in London and at Ealing Studios, it stars Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Kate Ashfield, Lucy Davis, Dylan Moran, Penelope Wilton and Bill Nye. So the plan is, we talk about the film, we'll go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for this thing to blow over.
Beautiful. Let's do it.
The beginning.
The beginning of Shaun of the Dead introduces us to our 5 principal characters. After the credit sequence, we see Shaun and his slobby best mate Ed at home, but we're starting our conversation with Shaun at work and ending it with his inevitable breakup with his girlfriend Liz.
Yeah, this sequence, I love it really, because what you get when Shaun's at work, it's one of the key things I think Edgar Wright does really well here, and it's part of the writing as well. It's the background detail, the stuff that's going on that you're kind of oblivious to, or the characters are oblivious to. Like when Shaun's demonstrating the TVs to the customers in the shops, and he's flicking through all the news channels, and each one of them is given like a little bit of the story. So there's footage where you see people in hazmat suits and you see something's been cordoned off, and you're like, oh, something's going on there. Then there's a woman just talking about, a bit of Trisha. Then there's a woman talking about the way certain things are walking, and she starts doing the zombie impression, but then it's all timed really perfectly, because just when you get a sense of what they're saying, he snaps to another channel and you kind of lose it, and you can understand why it isn't really falling into place for Shaun yet. And I think it's a great technique if you do it well, which I think is done well here, because it doesn't tip its hand too early. It's just building this unease in the background while all the jokes are in the foreground. And it's like when Shaun's about to leave work and you see all the army trucks just zooming past, which, it's kind of blinking, you miss it moment. That adds to it. The fact that bloke nearly sends him flying because he's running away from something. You don't know what, he's clearly terrified. I love all that stuff. And it builds up until when he bumps into Yvonne, his friend from college, because when they're talking, there's like a car accident in the background. And every time I watch it, I'm like, is that something to do with it? Or is that just something different, something random? But there's all like the sirens going off, and it's just building up the unease really nicely in the background. And of course, here you get one of the first examples, of which you get numerous in the film, where you get the same line of dialogue repeated 3 times throughout the film. When he meets Yvonne, glad somebody made it, surviving, which obviously we'll come back to as the film goes on. So, it's just building up the fact that something is going on that the characters are just unaware of, and I really like that about it. And while it's done that, it's already by this point, it's established Shaun, who he is, his faltering relationship with Liz, his problematic friendship with Ed, and the fact that he's got a difficult relationship with his mum and his stepdad. So it's great storytelling.
Yeah, it really is. I absolutely love Rafe Spall as Noel.
Yeah.
He's great.
Such a cocky little shit, but he's hilarious.
Yeah. Continue.
Hello, mate.
Do that all the time.
I love it. And he's the first one to say, you've got red on you as well.
Yeah, he is,
Great. I never noticed until recently that Noodle, the guy who calls Ed at home, and he tells him he's only got an Henry in. Yeah. That's Noel. I didn't realise. I didn't connect the dots together.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I want to talk about the moment where Shaun realises just after that sequence when he sees her phone that he hasn't booked the table for his and Liz's anniversary, which was last week. Ridiculous.
He's crap, isn't he?
He's shit.
He's really
and
shit.
It's funny for a couple of reasons. He gets back home and Ed's still playing Time Splitters.
Yeah.
Like he was this morning after Shaun's been a full day at work.
Yeah, and he's tidied up.
Yeah.
That's a
You're
beers
going to thank
after.
us then. It's not very tidy. That's some beers after. And he asks Shaun if he wants his messages. Your mum called about going round tonight. And then Liz called about eating out tonight. And then your mum called back, ask if I'd eat her out tonight.
What?
It's his like cheeky grin and sideways glance because he knows he'll get this like outraged response from Shaun. What?
Yeah. Can't beat a good mum joke.
Yeah, he's most intelligent he's been all day. He's been working on that like all day.
Yeah. And Shaun, speaking of the restaurant, they're so abrupt. He calls up and he knows what's going to happen, but he asks, listen, I know it's short notice, but have you got a table for 2 at 8 o'clock? And they're straight in there. No, sorry, we gave the last table away. Slam the phone down.
Yeah.
And Shaun's reaction, it's priceless. He's just blocked into a corner and he takes out his frustration by gnawing on that phone, bites him down.
So funny.
Fuck. Brilliant. Yeah.
Who hasn't been that frustrated where they've done that and they're just like, fuck! And you just that real like, and it gives you like all the blood rushes to your head and you feel faint afterwards, but you're still fucking furious. I just love it. I love the fact he looks it up and it says the place that does all the fish, because that's what he describes it as, and that's what it's described itself as.
That's fantastic.
So
Such a good gag, that isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so funny. There are 1,000 references to horror films and other films throughout the film, and we'll talk about them here. But one of my favourites is here, the restaurant. It's called Fulci's, which is a reference to Lucio Fulci, the quotes godfather of gore, who directed things like Zombie, City of the Living Dead, Manhattan Baby, all classics.
Yeah, for you.
For me, yeah. For nobody else
Normal
but me.
people. Nope.
There's a load of other references in this stretches alone. Shaun works at Forey Electric, and Ken Forey starred in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
There's a character called Ash in the electrical store. Obviously, Ash is the lead character in the Evil Dead series, who also works in a similar kind of store.
Yeah.
Shop Smart, Shop S-Mart.
Yeah.
And the supermarket is called Landis Supermarket. Obviously a reference to John Landis, and almost certainly a play on words to the actual British store chain Londis. I think.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
Very good.
I just really like it when you see Shaun and Ed's relationship here once he's been finished and it's in the pub, and it's just you've had them times with your mates where you've got to try and cheer one of them up and you don't quite know how to do it. But Ed really does. Like he's got his Clyde impression there.
Yeah.
He pulls that out. He's like, right, that's fine. You've got your pint, you've got your pig snacks. What more do you fucking want? That's the world right there. And Ed's like, all right, I'll do my impression. And then If You Leave Me Now by Chicago comes on the jukebox.
Who put this on?
So fucking funny. Who put this? He's furious. Who put this on? And he's like, it's on random. It's so fucking funny.
Oh, for fuck's sake, John. Yes, please, mate.
Yeah, for fuck's sake. Bang, one of them classic Edgar Wright smash cuts.
Yeah,
and then
amazing.
it's like, then he starts going, right, well, what else can I do? And starts giving all the backstories of everybody in the pub, snake hips, and he's like coccicidal maniac. Like he invented the mobile disco like 1974, whatever. She's a coccicidal maniac. Yeah. Fucking brilliant.
Coffee au lait.
Peg is like, shit, what did you do that for? Because he can't help but it's just that delivery. That's what they were like when they lived together. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. That is their like relationship, and I love that you can see it done that well. It's really funny. That would pick anybody up, man. Just look at that. It's like a lesson. That's how you do it. Brilliant. And then you have that really great monologue from him where he just says, look, I'm not the cleverest. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do anything. But what I can say, it's not the end of the world. And then that bang on the door. It's so good because he kind of just like shrugs it. It's not the end of the world. Boom.
Because you're expecting something really, really profound from him. But what I will say is this. Not the end of the world.
But actually, it's genius. Yeah. And then that hand comes on, and then they go out and they do white lines in the street, which is arguably one of my favourite bits with the dubba-da-dubba-da-dubba-da. And then looking,
Bass.
what's the matter? You know? Yeah, just as he walks out, what's the matter? You know, had your tea? And then his head falls off. He strips back. Really, really good.
It's frost on fire in this scene. It's hilarious when he's talking about the owner of the pub, John, being in the mafia. Big Al says he's connected.
Yeah.
Love that. He says, think about it. Handy with a blade, and it's like zooms in on him cutting a piece of lemon. Handy with a blade. Bernie, the trophy wife, and it pans across to Bernie, who is by no means trophy at all.
She's a bowling trophy.
Yeah.
But for me, the character of Ed, he's responsible for one of the greatest things in the film, and it's that moment where he's trying to lift Shaun's spirits after the breakup, and Ed's saying he should keep drinking tomorrow, and he lays out his plans, and this foreshadows all of the events that take place in the actual film. Yeah. Incredible. So he says, Bloody Mary first thing, the zombie in the garden's Mary.
Yeah.
A bite of the king's head, Philip gets bitten.
Yeah.
A couple in the Little Princess, Liz and her two flatmates.
Yeah.
Stagger back here, which they do, back to the as zombies, and then bang, it's back to the bar for shots or shells.
Yeah.
Just
brilliant.
Incredible.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. Once you realise what he's done, like what that line dialogue is.
So smart.
Amazing. Yeah. That is all based on like what Nick Frost, like Westy says when he used to live with Simon Pegg. Pegg says that's what Nick Frost would do. He would just make up backstories for people. He would invent characters on the spot. So that's what Wright and Pegg put into the script for this moment. And you know who the woman is who plays the coccycidal maniac?
No. Is she actually a coccycidal maniac?
She's actually a coccycidal maniac. No, she's called Pamela Franklin, and she was an actress who was in some of the Carry On films in the 60s and 70s.
Fantastic.
But her daughter is Charlotte Hatherley, who was in the rock band Ash.
Ash,
who was Edgar Wright at the time.
Yeah.
Who Edgar Wright was singing the time, yeah. So there's like all the kind of little links to like their life in there as well.
Oh, nice. Brilliant.
Hello? Hello, mate. No. I was totally munted last night.
After this sequence, Ed and Shaun stumble home, oblivious to what's happening around them. They play some electro and have another confrontation with Pete. Shaun takes a familiar trip to the shop, and we're picking up the action when our heroes find the suspicious-looking girl in their garden.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, over to you, big balls.
Thanks. Yeah, Bloody Mary. Like, if you've ever seen This Is England, the TV version, or you've seen Line of Duty, you'll know who Vicky McClure is, and Vicky McClure actually auditioned for this role. But the actress who did get it is someone called Nicole Cunningham. And Edgar Wright has said, like, he credits a lot of the success of the film on her because, as he says, she's the first zombie you see properly. And he just said it's really important that people realised I was taking the zombie element seriously and I was going to spoof them. So she had to be scary, which, to be fair, I think she is. I think she absolutely is so memorable in this
she
part.
knocks it out of the park.
You know, Edgar Wright himself said, you know, in his opinion, he would put her up with Bub from Day of the Dead in terms of memorable zombies.
Brilliant.
And apparently in her audition, she really went for it. She actually like properly lunged it right in the camera. You know, she really got into it. So he's like, right, brilliant, having her. But the scene itself, I just love the reaction that you get from Shaun and Ed when they first see her. Like, oh my God, she's so drunk. Because like part of the greatness and the humour of the film is how long it takes them to realise something has gone wrong. And Ed is like chiming in, how much have you had, love? Thinks it's absolutely hilarious. Like, even when she's attacking Shaun and you realise like something's going on, his first reaction, go and get a disposable camera so you can take a picture because it's just funny. I mean, that it does date the film because it's a disposable camera.
The
you know,
spin in the
camera,
the winding the camera on.
Yeah, but it is, well, like say winding the camera on, it's one of the great gags in the film after she's been in
the film. Yeah,
and she pulls herself up and there's that stunned silence, and then you just get the
so good.
What's great about that, like, it previews that wasn't getting a laugh because they didn't have the sound effect. And Pegg and Wright realised we need to put the sound effect over, so they did. And that's what made it funny. Apparently that's when everyone started laughing. Before that, they weren't getting a single laugh out. So yeah, one of the funniest bits in the film, and just that incredible visual where she's pulling herself off and you get Shaun and Ed framed through the hole in the stomach.
Yeah,
that was like, you know what? By now, you know this film isn't going to be some lazy spoof. It's got jokes, but it's also got ideas and it's got some real talent going on behind it. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Pegg said the same about her, didn't he, as an actress? Said she's one of his favourite zombies of all time. Which is absolutely unbelievable. And then when she was when Ed had said, look, I think she just needs a hug. And he said, maybe she does. It's like 'cause you don't know where she's coming from, you don't know her backstory. You know, you can see her at the opening credits on the
she's at the
checkout.
supermarket.
On the checkout, yeah.
Brilliant. Great touch.
And it's just when Shaun's about, well, would you fuck off? Like pushes her. Just fuck off, man. It's like,
Ed's reaction when she gets impaled.
hand over the mouth.
I love it when, well, before she gets impaled, she's coming towards them and Ed's saying, I think she fancies you. Yeah. And they're all having a bit of a laugh about it. And Shaun says, no, seriously, I've just come out of a relationship.
She lands on him at that point. No, seriously.
Brilliant. I want to talk about the moment when Ed and Shaun go back in the house. Shaun asks, are they still at the window? And the blinds are pulled, and they're doing these over-the-top zombie noises, scratching and trying to eat through the window. It's great. But this bit that I want to talk about is very short, but it's pivotal, I think. I want to mention the one-armed groom who comes in the house.
Yeah.
The door thing's set up because Pete's absolutely furious about the door being opened again.
Again.
And the man on the TV says, ensure all doors and windows are locked, which triggers Shaun and Ed. And there's that amazing reaction when they see the zombie. Big screeches. Shaun, Ed goes, fucking hell! And they're like jumping up and down on the spot, not knowing what to do, throwing cans off it.
Yeah. He was in the corner shop, wasn't he, on the previous scene?
He was
in the background. Yeah.
He is, yeah.
And Shaun just, oh, he's got an arm off.
He's got an arm off.
But Ed finally manages to smash his head in with the ashtray, and he says, did you see his head go? And I haven't got this confirmed, but that's got to be a reference to Kevin Dillon in Platoon.
Yeah.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Oh, right.
Fucking head break apart like that, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The original line was going to be, he's got a fucking arm off, but they realised really early on they wanted to use this bit in the trailer, so that'll cut the swearing out.
Right,
nice.
Okay. Funnier for it.
It is funny for it.
He's
It
got
is.
an arm off.
He's got an arm off.
Just absolute panic, isn't it?
And there's some great dialogue after this as well. Ed thinks that he can take Bloody Mary and the Hulk outside. And Shaun says, the man says we should stay indoors. And Ed, fuck the man. Lovely.
Yeah.
Like straight in his element now.
It just gets better from there when they get in the garden and they just bring out this shit box of crap. It's just like a rolling pin, and it's just absolutely
plastic
pointless.
And a toaster.
Yeah. And like a cheese grater or something, they kind of just throw it at people. It just makes no sense. And then they realise that the electro record's out there that Pete's thrown out the window the night before, and he picks it up and actually makes an impact. And they go, yes, great. And it's just them two going through the record collection, deciding what to throw and what not
Fantastic.
to throw. I absolutely love that. When they're going through like Purple Rain, no. Sign of the Times, absolutely not. Batman soundtrack, fucking throw it. That's basically Prince in a nutshell for anyone else who listen to Prince. But that's great. I love the fact that they're arguing about Second Coming. I liked it.
Oh, it's such a muso gag. That
it is, because it's just
great.
like such a divisive album. It was just like, is it good? Is it not? Nobody knows, and it's still there. No, Sade, brilliant.
Yeah.
It's Liz's.
But she did dump you.
Yeah, fuck it. It's just fantastic. Just to that point when they just go, "Oh, this is useless," and I think Shaun says it's useless because he didn't want to get rid of any more of his records.
Yeah.
So that was the first pressing. Jesus Christ! So
Dire Straits,
I'm going to the I'm going to the shed, and I love that. I'm going to the shed. Doesn't just go to the shed, he just runs at the shed and just puts himself through the door. So dramatic.
Pegg and Wright contacted a load of different artists, like the artists that I mentioned in this scene when deciding which records to throw, and they only got clearance from Sade and New Order. Good sports.
Oh, really?
That's why you can see the front covers of those two only.
Yeah.
Knopfler said no, didn't he, for Dire Straits?
Knopfler said no for Dire Straits. Yeah. Prince didn't return the calls.
No.
And instead of Prince albums, it was originally going to be Bowie. Hunky Dory, no. Ziggy Stardust, definitely not. The Labyrinth soundtrack, throw it.
Yeah. You just get this sense of like, can you handle where this film's going by how fucking much they're hitting them on the ground.
Yeah.
It's just bang, bang,
smash,
bang,
smash.
Bang. Yeah. And like Ed's not hesitating, he's just going. No. But you see like Shaun hesitates at one point and kind of looks over and goes, should I keep? Yeah, I'll keep going. Just that lovely little moment where he's just like, I'm just going to hold off and like, nah, fucking. And then it's just bang, bang, bang. Then it's that cut to the cornetto, just licking that. That's
brilliant.
So fucking funny.
Okay, this scene leads us into our first Patreon question.
Okay.
Mentioned when I was talking about Patreon at the start that if you become an All the Right Movies Patreon supporter, you can ask us questions for the films that we're covering. And our first one is from Kenny Morrison. Hello, Kenny.
Hello, Kenny.
Hello, Kenny, mate.
Kenny.
He asked specifically regarding this scene, what are the first and last albums in your collection that you used to throw at a zombie? Great question.
It is a great question. Can I get some clarity on the question? As per usual, there's always a fucking nugget
Of course,
from me. I can't just
on
like,
F5
read it.
each.
Do you realise I've got no GCSEs because I kept putting my hand up just being like, you see this one here? Does this stipulate that X is actually the library? But, is it like, because you're going to throw them at a zombie, it's records you want to get rid of, right?
Well, yeah. Which one would you be happy to get rid of, I suppose?
Right, okay. Well, I just went A to Z because it's like, what's the first and last record that you would throw? And I've went a little bit more on topic. So the first one would be Anthrax, Among the Living. So I think that's quite...
So you've gone alphabetically. Rob Gordon?
It's Anthrax is the first one. That's me A. That's my first one.
The Zulu soundtrack is the last one,
No,
is
it's
it?
not. Throw it. It's the Zombies' greatest hits, obviously.
Genius. Very good. Right, okay. Well, Matt, have you got any kind of alphabetized, or is it autobiographical?
No fucking way.
This is like quite a bad confession, really, but I have to be honest, I don't actually own music. I just stream stuff.
Oh,
So-
Matt, you're so 21st century.
Wow, you are. Which laptop would you throw at a zombie? And what
Well,
would it
that's
be
it.
playing
I've
at the
got
time?
Spotify and YouTube, and that's it. So I'd have to
If
throw
you had
like
two
a laptop.
iPads playing Spotify,
Yeah.
what would they be playing as you threw them at zombies?
The only thing I thought of would be like to do it tactically, and I guess if I had something like the White Album on vinyl, that would give me 4 things to throw rather than just one. So I
Right.
would go for like something like the White Album to be the first, just because it gives me more ammunition.
But that's going to take a lot of money to replace, Matt.
If loads. You only want to get rid of disc 2 as well. Everything else is fantastic.
You want to throw 90s dance compilation at them? There's
course you
shitloads of records in there.
Whatever. If you've got any Christmas albums, throw them fuckers out the way.
The penny.
Yeah.
What's the last album that you would want to throw at a zombie?
Oh God, probably Zombie by the Cranberries.
Nice.
Great. Okay. Well, for me, I'm sticking with just movie soundtracks here. It was a tough call, but if it came to it, I would throw Cobra soundtrack at a zombie in the back garden. Throw some 80s shit at a zombie. And I've got the Friday the 13th soundtrack. I paid a lot of money for it, and it's out of print now, so I'm not throwing that at them. No way.
Wow.
No way. But if I was extending it to my actual music collection, I would definitely be throwing Time, Love and Tenderness by Michael Bolton at the zombies. I don't know why I've got that in there.
Mate, throw that at anyone. Doesn't have to be any kind of pandemic going on. Just throw that out the window now.
Okay, good question.
Yeah, thanks, Kenny.
Yeah,
Thanks
great.
very much, Kenny. Okay, well, it's slowly beginning to dawn on Shaun what he and Ed are up against, but he needs a plan.
The director.
The story of the screenplay and director of Shaun the Dead is intertwined because Edgar Wright has got a co-writing credit as well, but we're going to focus solely on Edgar Wright as the director here. Matt, what do you think of Edgar Wright's work as director on Shaun of the Dead?
Wright as director. I think what's interesting is that, you know, people call this his debut film, and I think that's ambiguous because he did get together enough money to do a spoof western a few years before, A Fistful of Fingers, which I think got one shown at one cinema, so that possibly
nobody saw.
But nobody saw. And even by Edgar Wright's own admission, it's a terrible, terrible film.
Right.
So I think what you have with Shaun of the Dead is you get a film directed with the energy of a man who knows he's pretty much in the last chance saloon. And if he doesn't get this right, he's quite possibly never going to get to direct a film again. And that is why I think you can tell he has thought through every single shot in this film because he wants to make the most of it. And there's nothing in Shaun of the Dead that feels throwaway or has a, that'll do attitude. And I know he did find it difficult because he had this film so completely mapped out in his head. And I know he struggled to communicate it to a lot of the crew, who were all veterans of TV. His DP was like 20 years older than him, who'd worked with the Coens and Scorsese. and he found it difficult to get across what he wanted. So when he was doing all these close-ups of things like Shaun taking his name tag off, the toilet being flushed, jam being spread on toast, everyone was saying, why are we doing this? Why do you want that kind of coverage? But then when you see the way he puts it together, that like rapid-fire editing, where he's made it a montage, and it's, you know, you can see that's what he wants to do. He wants to do these everyday tasks like someone gearing up for battle, like in an action film. It all starts to make sense, and that's the level of detail and invention that he brings to this film. And there was another day when he was going through his prep on location, and he just happened to be standing next to an extra who didn't recognize him, who thought he was just a runner because he was so young. And apparently this extra nudged him and went, "This film, straight a video for this one." So that's the kind of like, that's the kind of attitude he had to deal with and win people off. And that's why the first thing he shot, first day shooting, was those 2 walks to the news agents that Shaun does, the first one, where everything's
not
normal.
fucking around.
To show, basically, to show, right, this is what I'm capable of doing, and this is the kind of element that I'm going to bring to this film. And I think that takes real guts to do that, because he was basically telling people, this is how much effort I've put into this, and this is what I can do. And I think the whole film is just packed full of invention like that. As I said earlier, loads of background details, like when Shaun and Ed are driving away from the flat and Shaun's just looking out the car window, and you see things like there's that twitching corpse in the body bag on the ambulance gurney. There's someone's house and they're just being dragged, screaming back into the house. Like, if you watch those sequences in isolation, you'd think, oh, this is just a pure horror film. There's genuine intensity to that. And as well as that, I think he handles the transition from horror to comedy so well. And you can just switch between the two. I mean, we'll go into it in more detail later, obviously, but by the time you get to that final siege in the Winchester, that is just so incredibly dramatic, like,
I agree,
for what's been a knockabout comedy. So, in terms of tone, he knocks it out the park, and just in general, I think it's the work of a young director who's just brimming with energy, invention, flair, but most of all, he just has a point to prove, and I think he just proves it so well in this film. Yep,
agreed. I think there's just so much excitement and freshness and originality about Wright's work here. Although when I say originality, there are more references to pop culture in this film than I think any of Tarantino's work.
Yeah,
it's stuffed. Yeah. It's stuffed to the brim, and it always feels as though this is his big chance to put his stamp on the cinematic landscape. And he thought, well, I'm just going to use everything I can from my favorite films, all the symbolism, references here, there, and everywhere, and put them into this. And that sounds like it could have been a complete disaster.
Yeah,
a hodgepodge of different ideas, but he's a smart director and he knows where to put things, how to strategically place them to stick out, or where to place them in the background to be picked up by idiots like us who absolutely love this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking anything away from Edgar Wright by saying that. Far from it. I think he's got such a unique style and vision, and a really exciting way of making movies, and a real distinct voice in the last 20 years. One of the most distinct voices in movie directing in the last 20 years. And like you said, Matt, balancing a number of different tones like superbly well. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. Like you said, there's so much going on in the background of this film, Matt, none more so than those 2 tracking shots to the shop. Yeah. The amount of people that are in there in the first one that then turn into zombies in the second one are great. Yeah. As the camera tracks Shaun, there's people in their gardens with their heads off, smashed cars, alarms going off. One person's running for his life, whereas before he was jogging on the first trip to the shop.
Yeah.
That slip by Pegg as well in the shot when he slips on the blood. It's brilliant.
It's fantastic.
I love that. Yeah.
And I do like the idea that the film uses radio and TV broadcast to explain what's happening, very much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this one is a bit more tantalizing, because when we're finally going to get to the nitty-gritty, it's turned off, switched over to a different channel.
Yeah.
And there are so many visual gags crammed in there. I mean, the writing's super smart, but visually, it's just incredible as well. Favourites, there'll be more that I bring up, but a favourite of mine is when Shaun goes to the shop for the second time and Nelson, the shopkeeper, isn't there. Yeah. Shaun shouts out, "I owe you about 15p." And then when all shit broken loose and then they're trying to get into Pete's car, there's the zombified Nelson with his hand out, palm facing up as if he's asking for that 15 pence.
Yeah.
So, like, visually, that's laugh out loud funny for me. That's just so good.
Yeah.
I've got nothing but praise for Edgar Wright on this. It's amazing. It's a fantastic job.
Yeah. What I love about that second trip, though, when he's hungover, in the background, if you notice, you'll see the one-armed groom approaching him, but he's quite far in the background.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
already setting up the fact that he's going to come in the house.
Yeah, so he's just followed him home, hasn't he?
Yeah. Just brilliant
Great.
thinking to think of little details like that.
What about you, Westy? Edgar Wright?
Right, I might be bringing a shitty stick to the party because you guys.
Oh, throw it away. Chase somebody around the garden with it.
He's got an arm off. But, I find Edgar Wright to be quite divisive in my mind as a director, and I don't want to sound like a dick about it. I just find that a lot of his influences and a lot of things that he puts into the film, to me personally, are too familiar. It's a bit too obvious.
Unlike Tarantino.
But Tarantino isn't obvious. It's not because it's not familiar. Because you just thought, well, what was this? Oh, yeah, this was made in 1956 and you've never seen it. So, all right, fair enough. Whereas a lot of Edgar Wright's influences and a lot of what he puts into his films where I believe he thinks it's really clever and everyone else goes, oh, that's really clever. To me, doesn't seem so clever. It kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I would have done. Not like saying... I'm Edgar Wright, which I'm definitely not. But like I can see where he's like, that would work there, that would work there. And it's like he's trying to impress and knows it's going to work. Do you know what I mean? He knows it's going to work because he knows what that influence is going to do for people because it's familiar. Does this make any sense?
It
and
does,
it's just
because
there's no mystery to Edgar Wright's work. There's no like, oh, I'm going to see what happens in the third act. Everything, even the exposition's laid out here. Like we've said, it is brilliant. And it really works in this film, but I don't think it works in his other films. I don't think you can take that style and see it over and over again. To see the smash cuts of somebody getting ready to go to work, right? Okay, you know, great, it works, but then it happens again, and then there's loads of smash cuts here, and then there's a lot of that, you know, camera panning and that whip pan to a cut, or someone walking past the camera, and it's a transition. Like I find that quite music video. I find that quite painful to watch. It takes us out of the cinematic landscape. I want it to be a little bit more weighted and steady, and you know, let's shoot a scene where it's him and him, because he gets it from the get-go, from the start. You've got Shaun talking to Liz, then he introduces Ed, then he introduces her friends. It's like going around and using, and he breaks the line and he's going, this is how clever I am as a filmmaker, this is how you do it here. But then if you watch Buffalo 66, it does exactly the same in that, but it's just surprisingly good. And it keeps it on a wide angle and it spins you around. And it's got a more of a Japanese kind of influence, so it's not on its sleeve going, this is how clever I am, this is what I want to do. It's like it works for the story. I'm not denying, or I'm not taking anything away, that he's an incredibly intelligent filmmaker and he understands cinema very, very well. But then again, I've watched films for 40 years and I know them as well, Edgar. I don't need them spat back in me face. I want to watch your film, not someone else's. But like, I know what they've done and I know how much that's an influence, and that's absolutely fine. But like, it just feels a little bit too safe and a little bit too obvious and a little bit too easy. And from that, I don't get the weight from his films that I should. I think he's fantastic and he's a wonderful man. I will watch whatever he does, but every time I do watch it, I'm slightly disappointed because this is so good. And he just had to go somewhere else with it, and he never really did for me.
Wow, controversial views, and you fucked our chances of getting Edgar Wright on the show, Westy. I was hopeful we would get sight of this and maybe listen, tuning straight off now. Controversial views, and hey, you're entitled to your opinion, Westy. Absolutely, yeah.
Just what I think.
But Wright and Pegg got some interest from Film 4 when pitching the idea to studios, but Film 4 reduced their overall movie budget, leaving Shaun of the Dead in limbo. Determined to get Shaun to the big screen, Wright put off taking TV gigs to pursue financing for the film, and he said, for me to take a TV job meant that I was pushing the film back, so I was going rapidly broke, and I was majorly in the red. I mean, he was on the bones of his ass. And he borrowed money to live from friends, including Simon Pegg, who still hasn't allowed to pay him back the money. Nice, man.
Yeah, that's nice.
There's the obvious George A. Romero Dead film series that served as an influence for the film, Dawn of the Dead being the most obvious, obviously Dawn, Shaun.
Yeah.
But Wright also drew inspiration from An American Werewolf in London and the 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, specifically the use of background action to point to the narrative that can go overlooked, like we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He also claimed that the style of Shaun of the Dead was directly influenced by John Carpenter, joking that I haven't got any ideas of my own, something I imagine, Westy, you would agree with.
I would agree with Yes. His ideas are great. I've just seen them before. That's the only thing. We probably love the same fucking films. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to see it from a different angle, but I think Edgar Wright's kind of my angle, which pisses us off a little bit because I'm not doing it.
There we go.
Then.
There we go.
Finally
There it is.
nailed
Finally,
it.
There it
keep
is.
that in.
Someone drop a penny.
I hope Edgar's still listening to that.
Well, yeah, so do I. At least he had friends like Simon Pegg. You guys give me fuck all. And the bones of my arse over here.
As we've alluded to, Wright and Pegg worked together on British TV show Spaced before Shaun of the Dead. It shares themes and actors with the film. It's well worth a look if you haven't watched it already. To keep costs down, Edgar Wright put out a casting call on Spaced fans forums for background zombie artists, and they recruited about 200 Spaced fans. And I can't believe this, but they literally paid them £1 per day.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
That's not enough. That's an insult, if anything.
Well, no wonder they're giving him shit saying it's going straight to video. How much you get for this? £1 a day?
Well, that may have come out in some of their actions. Space fans were the zombies, and when he wanted to go out and get some zombie sounds, Edgar Wright went out, stood in the middle of them and asked them to attack. One took the instructions literally and started biting down on his leg. He said that it went feral. So despite being a rookie director, Wright hit the ground running with Shaun of the Dead, and 18 years later, it's a peak that he's yet to come down from.
The cast.
First member of the cast that we're talking about is obviously Simon Pegg as Shaun of the Dead. Westy, what do you think of Pegg as Shaun?
I love Pegg as Shaun. Obviously written. Well, there you go. Right. I do like this film. I was just talking about the Edgar Wright thing in the Edgar Wright section where I was supposed to talk about it. I do love Simon Pegg in this. I think he's fantastic as the character. You can tell it was kind of written for him as him. It's very, very personal character, I think, and something that he wanted to explore and does really, really well. And I think a lot of people can relate to that character because a lot of people have been or will be that character at some point in your life. You have to go through that, whatever it is.
Echoes of Rob Gordon for me, this character.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. It's just got that kind of lost, where do I go? What am I doing? Is everything over with? I'm 29, I'm 30, whatever age you are, you get to that little time and you just kind of go, I'm completely lost here and I don't know what to do. I don't want any responsibilities, but I need to have some. So what do I do? You know, and I think he plays that really, really well. I think he's a very lovable character. I think you're on his side 100% all the way through the film. I think he brings some incredible comedy beats and some brilliantly emotional beats as well when he needs to. Really, really hits that hard. Unfortunately, I would like to have seen him in more leading roles, but I just don't think the material was there for him to do it. I know he's forged a great career now, especially with the Mission Impossible stuff, and he was great in Star Trek. But yeah, I love him in this. I think he's the perfect character. Obviously, it was written for him, but I think he plays it really, really well and gives everyone else room to shine as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Simon Pegg, and it certainly stems from this, the same with Nick Frost. It's no surprise to me that, having rewatched this film quite a bit in the last few weeks, that he's gone on to become a big movie star, despite him not being in the traditional mold. I say a big movie star, but you know what I mean. He's in a lot of big films. Like, of course. Because in this film, I think he shows really great range. Drama, comedy, despair, action. It's all in this role of Shaun, the unlikely hero. And the fact that he turns from a complete no-hoper to a zombie killing badass is believable, but he plays it like all the good ones do. He's not Sly or Arnold. He gets most things wrong.
Yeah.
He tries to be those guys, but ends up getting a dart in the head. His ineptitude is highlighted right at the start for me in that section that you talked about, Matt, when he's at work, when Noel shows him up completely, confirming his complete lack of authority, maturity, ambition, I suppose. And he's stepping up because Mr. Sloman's off. But he's absolutely no idea how to manage Noel, who's a child, and who makes him a fool at every turn.
The oldest. Yeah. I love that when he's like, there's no I in team, but there is an I in pie. And meat pie, meat's an anagram of team. I don't know what he's talking about.
I think it's very understandable why Liz is at the end of the game with Shaun. And I think that's really good writing.
Oh, yeah.
There are loads of standout Shaun Pegg moments, which we'll talk about as we go on, but I love the dual bathroom scene with Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
The first one where he moves the bathroom mirror and Pete's behind him, like a mirror of the mirror scene in American Werewolf.
Yeah.
Then a mirror of this mirror scene happens again when Pete turns out to be a zombie. And I can see nods to Psycho in the shower, a nod to Evil Dead where Shaun says, "Join us."
Yeah.
But that scene really gives me chills. The idea of the unknown lurking behind you, terrifying stuff. And I think Pegg plays that really well.
Yeah, brilliant.
And after that, I love Ed downstairs when Shaun comes flying down the stairs and Ed's twirling the keys. Pissed me so pissed off if he knew I was driving his car, wouldn't he? I don't think so.
It's when they realise and they look up, say anyone's being bitten, then just keep them isolated. And they look up the stairs and then it just cuts to them like on the sofa looking up. And then it's that high shot and they're looking down. Pete! Pete!
Oh, prick! He's not in.
He's not in. I'm just going to go for a wee first.
You ready? Yeah. Just going to do a wee first. Oh. Pegg was offered a part in Neil Marshall's Dog Soldiers, a werewolf comedy from 2002, but he turned it down and held out for the financing to secure playing Shaun. Yeah. I would have liked to see him in that. Would have been good. I mean, it's a great film.
It's a great film. I would rather have this and that the way it is than Simon Pegg and that and not have this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Matt, what do you think of Pegg as Shaun?
I think it's very impressive work. I think it's a massive step up for him, really, because before this, couple of little roles here and there in films, but other than that, a sitcom, some stand-up, some sketch shows, and now he's got to shoulder an entire film, and he does that. And obviously, it helps that he's the writer, so he's going to write to his strengths. He's not going to give himself something to do that's completely out of his range. But for me, I am a big fan of the guy. I think he is very funny. I think he's got great comic timing and delivery, particularly with the simplest of lines, like when they first see the zombies in the garden and Ed says, "Oh, what should we do?" And he just goes, "Have a sit down." Like the way he delivers that. Like, have a sit down. I love that. That always makes me laugh.
That's brilliant.
Another absolutely favourite nuanced performance from Pegg is when David's talking to him when he's in the flat trying to speak to Liz, and David Lynn pipes up and then he just shuts his eyes and he's just like, "Get fucked, Four Eyes."
Why didn't you go out with him? You love her so much.
Yeah, but just he's like, he doesn't say anything, but just his reaction, because he's right in the middle of the lens. He's just like, "Get fucked." It's like absolutely fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes, it's great, but he's both said it, there's more to it though than his comic chops, because as he said, totally sums up that type of lazy late 20s guy who knows he needs to do something with his life, but he can't be asked to do it or even figure out what it is. And you can see he's pulled in so many directions in this film. His attachment to Ed, his relationship with Liz, his mum and Philip. And he just makes Shaun so recognisable. So even when he is taking charge, like you say, Luke, and trying to save everyone, everything he does still feels plausible and still feels believable, because he's not great at it, but he's just trying to do his best and bumbles his way through most of it. And then when you get to the end, I think that's when Pegg really steps up, when, you know, he's got to shoot his mum and then he's got to deal with Ed getting bitten. He's got to say goodbye to his best friend and he thinks he's mucked it up for everyone. That's like proper emotional and dramatic stuff for Pegg to do.
Yeah.
And I think he does a really good job handling that.
Purple Rain. No. Sign of the Times. Definitely not.
The Batman soundtrack.
So we're going to move over to our next member of the cast. We're talking about Nick Frost, who plays good-for-nothing weed-selling Ed, the third part of the Wright, Pegg, Frost dream team. Yeah. I'm going to go first with Ed. I'm going to talk about that opening scene. Perfect introduction to the character, because Shaun's trying to defend him by saying that he hasn't got many friends, blah, blah, blah. And maybe the first-time viewer's thinking, I wonder why that is. And then his line comes over straight away. "Can I get any of you a drink?" Right, I understand now.
That's right. Yeah.
What a dick.
But it's the timing of his delivery. Can I get any of you a drink?
Who says that?
Just like,
He couldn't give a fuck.
Is it he hardly knows anyone either?
Yeah.
But I think Ed's one of those lovable characters that, despite his many failings, I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lazy, he's crude, he's cowardly, he's got no idea of what's happening around him. But yet I still feel sorry for him when Shaun and Pete are having a go at him, even though it's fully justified.
Yeah.
Because he is infuriating, he does fuck all. And I think we all know an Ed, someone who's so frustratingly crap, but we just can't shake them loose, or we still feel sorry for them. And Frost plays that brilliantly.
Yeah.
And maybe he hasn't got the range of Pegg. You can see that in his future roles.
Yeah.
He kind of does a variation on this and has done for the last 18 years or so.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But if his name is in the credits of any film, it will interest me. He's a big draw to this film. Just physically, he gets a lot of the best lines. I think he's great.
Yeah. I think a lot of the lines that come, like you say, he gets a lot of the best lines, but I think a lot of them were actually just who he is.
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of who he was when they lived together, as Matt said earlier. And I think if you have years and years and years of living with people and, you know, having that kind of relationship, you will automatically have funny things to write down that you can remember.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you said that? Yeah, I remember that. I remember. And this film, to me, their dialogue feels like when you meet someone in the pub and they try to introduce you to a new friend who's coming in an hour. And they'll tell you he did this and he did this. And there was that time that we did this and he did this and he said this. And it was fucking hilarious. And you're like, yeah, I like this guy. And that to me is like the story that you're getting from Ed. It's like somebody just trying to justify him. But it's unnecessary because he justifies himself by the end of the film. It's brilliant. It's just like this guy, Shaun just has to try and explain why he's there and just give him some kind of purpose. But he gets purpose all on his own. He's fucking hilarious when he's just like, where's the car? We're supposed to be parked. And he's totaled it. He's after the Jaguar now. And he's like, yeah, I'll use the honk. And he's just like, the amount of times he's just got a joint as well that nobody notices. Like first thing in the morning, he's just on the joint. And then he comes back down. He's like, haven't you got work? Obviously doesn't want him there. It's not his, like, he's not looking out for Shaun, is he? Going like, you've got work, mate, you need to get the money in. He's like, are you going to fuck off? Because I'm in the middle of this game and I'm enjoying it. Like, if you got work, get fucked. And he's that kind of person. But again, when like the shit hits the fan and you get like that Mexican standoff later in the film, he's the first one there.
Yeah.
You can tell they are really close friends. You can tell everyone in this film knows each other and gives each other that room to really perform. And I think Nick Frost in this is fucking brilliant. He must have read that script going, are you putting that in there? Like, I'm sure one time he would have said, I'm sorry, Simon. He's like, oh, it's fine. No, I'm really sorry, Simon. You know what I mean? Like that would definitely have happened.
Stop doing them when you stop laughing.
Yeah, I'll stop doing it when you stop laughing. Fucking funny. But you can see it's that type of thing that you can't just write that. You can't just get it. You have to live through it.
Yeah.
And
totally.
that's the beauty of this film, and I think that's why it's quite a romantic film in its exploration of relationships, and that it's all very accessible and very like familiar. And that's great. And Nick Frost is probably the most familiar character. Like you said, Luke, we all know one.
Yeah, the amount of times that he says something crap or offensive or does something completely fucking outrageous, and the amount of times Shaun winces or puts his head in his hands and embarrassment, like, oh, what the fuck, Ed?
Yeah. And just lets him get on with it, though.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I know, like, when they were trying to get the funding, Frost was the one casting concern all the investors had, because they looked at Simon Pegg and they were going, okay, yeah, 2 Seas of Space, he's going to be fine. Kate Ashfield, yep, fine, properly trained actress. But they kept on saying, we're done about Frost, though. He only had a small role in space. He's not a trained actor. And they kept saying, you know, you should recast the best friend, ideally with an American that wanted a name in there. But obviously they stuck to the guns. And I think the film is just infinitely for the better because of it, because I can't imagine anyone
that would have
other
been
than
terrible.
Frost there. It would have been, you know, someone like Seth Rogen in there just wouldn't have made sense.
No.
Jonah Hill, someone like that.
Jesus.
And again, you know, it's tailored to him. So obviously it's wrote about him and what he was like as a person. So it would be a pretty bad state of affairs if he couldn't then do it on screen.
Yeah.
But I think he does deliver, and I think the role still does have challenges for him to overcome, because throughout the film, Ed is far more of a hindrance than a help. As you guys are saying, he's pretty offensive to everyone. Loads of lewd comments about Shaun's mum. I mean, which are all funny, to be fair.
Yeah.
But Frost has got to judge that so well, because, like you're saying, we've got to like him, or we've got to at least
absolutely
understand why Shaun tolerates him. Otherwise, the ending will not work at all. And I think he does that. I think he's a very funny guy. I love how basically everything that happens in this film, right up until the end, he basically just brushes it all off. When Liz says in that opening scene, it's not that we don't like you, Ed. He just goes, yeah, okay, it's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
He's got his fruit machine. That's all he cares about. When they're going through the plan where they're going to go, he refuses to go to Liz's because, it's obviously been established he's gone there before and he's not allowed to smoke there.
Yeah.
So, I love all those
Where
bits.
can I smoke?
Okay. Yeah. And I just think underneath all the laziness and like the offensive comments, there is basically like a kind-hearted guy in there deep down, but he's just never grown up. And I think Frost brings that out really well. And I think for a non-trained actor to do that is, quite an accomplishment. And what's funny though is that he showed real commitment to the role, and what he did was he shaved his own pubic hair off throughout filming, so he would be constantly scratching himself the whole time. That's commitment, lads. Shaving your pubes off.
A method.
Yeah. See, the thing about Frost as well is that like that character basically turns everything over at the end of Act 2 to start Act 3, which is outside the Winchester, and his phone rings.
Yeah.
And he just says, "Give us 2 minutes." But you're not angry with him, are you?
No.
At that point, you should be
understand what's happening.
seething with him. But when he's like, "Just give us 2 minutes," you're kind of like, you're totally Shaun. The whole audience is Shaun, just being like, "Yeah, I'll give him 2 minutes." He's got to answer that. That must be something important. No, I've got nothing right.
Yeah, it's Noodle again. Asking if he's got anything, and he says, it's like it's mental what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll be back. But you should be furious at that point, but you're not. And I think that's all down to Frost. You've got that moment just before Act 3. If people hate you at that point, this film is completely fallen on its arse. And you don't. You love him. You love him.
Yeah. You kind of feel for him when like Shaun knocks the phone out of his hand. Because he just goes, "Oi!" Like in a really childlike way.
Yeah.
And he looks down all sad and hurt.
He does,
Just what's going on. Brilliant.
And like we mentioned, Pegg and Nick Frost were friends. Frost was a waiter at a local restaurant, and Pegg's then girlfriend worked with him and introduced him and said, "There's this really funny guy at work, you should meet him." And Pegg and Frost hit it off. Pegg's obviously now not with the same girl, and he said, "I got Nick in the separation," which is a nice touch, I think.
Very nice.
And because he thought he was hilarious, Pegg convinced Frost to quit his job and appear as Gun Nut Mike in TV show Spaced, the best part of Space for me.
Yeah.
You may have noticed that Ed has got a chunk of hair missing from the right side of his head on the back.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Frost thought that it would be some kind of drunken prank that Ed and his mates get up to, shaving parts of their own hair off. Just decided it on a whim on set. Great. And the Clyde impression, that's been a party piece of Frost's for years. And he would often tell Wright that he wasn't a performing monkey when he asked him to do it at parties.
Brilliant. You can tell, though, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Edgar Wright's brother created Ed's iconic "I Got Wood" t-shirt.
Yeah.
It wasn't the only option that they had for this t-shirt logo. One had a logo that said "Bumpin' Donuts" in the Dunkin' Donuts style.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was another one that simply stated, "I heart pussy."
Not so.
And you can see that t-shirt. It's worn by Matt Lucas, who plays the equivalent Ed role in a
Right. Okay, yeah.
Right.
Right. Brilliant.
Take car, go to Mum's, kill Phil, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
The final piece of our cast jigsaw, we're talking about the long-suffering yin to Shaun's yang. It's Kate Ashfield as Liz. Matt, what do you think about Ashfield as Liz?
I think Ashfield has a really, really vital part to play in this film because out of everyone, like the three main leads, she is the one who was a properly trained actress. She had the qualifications, basically. And I think what she does is she brings a really grounded element to the film, which it needs. And I think, to be honest, she makes Pegg and Frost be better because they've got to be better around her because she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And they don't want to embarrass themselves around her. And I know at one point, Pegg and Wright had talks with Kate Winslet about this role, which I think could have been really cool. But I do really like Ashfield. I wouldn't have swapped her out for Winslet, to be honest, because I think what she does well is she avoids making Liz a nag, which would have been a very easy trap to fall into, the annoying girlfriend, just on Shaun's case all the time.
Definitely.
But I don't think she ever is. And I think you look and you go, you know what? Shaun does need to clean up his act and sort himself out.
Definitely.
And free himself from Ed because, look how patient Liz is. She is offering a proper grown-up adult future for Shaun if he is just smart enough to take it. And I think Ashfield is really good at cutting through all of Shaun's crap in this film, all those little digs she has at him for not meeting his mum yet, they're really funny. And I think when the film gets really dramatic at the end, I think she's just steps up to the part so well. When it's all kicking off and it's the Mexican standoff and she goes, please, can we all just calm the fuck down? That's brilliant.
Fantastic.
It's great delivery. And like I say, she makes Simon Pegg be better in that part, particularly when they're having that conversation about how he's going to have to kill Barbara. And it's really heartfelt. It's just saying, can't begin to understand what you're going through. It's proper good wrenching stuff. And I think she absolutely makes those scenes. So, yeah, overall, she may not get as many laughs as Pegg or Frost does, but I think she's just as important in the film as they are.
Yeah, exactly the same. I mean, she's not playing it for laughs; she's just playing it for complete believability, and you absolutely buy it, 100%. And the fact that she leaves a message for him in the morning and then says, "I'll try you at work," because knows how shit he is. So tries at work just to make
Hello,
sure.
Liz.
Look, hello,
hello.
Bye.
Just Lid from head office.
Nothing to worry about.
Nothing to worry about.
Which again is quite brilliant because that is Liz from his head office, isn't it? It's like that's his boss who basically telling him like, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" In his life, that is Liz from head office. But like to everyone else, he's trying to fit in. He doesn't know where to be. He's not his own person. But I think Kate Ashfield in this film is wonderful. She's absolutely wonderful. She just plays the part so well. Like Matt said, she has just such patience, such understanding, such maturity, and she kind of guides everyone through it. And she has this real kind of presence, and it really works. And the bit at the end when she gives him the rundown, like Ed used to, is just so heartwarming for me. It's just wonderful.
Yeah,
we're going to get the Sundays. We're going to go to the pub. We're going to do this, and then I'll get the kettle on, shall I? Take on, pop out the garden. She's like, oh, all right then. Just like it's just wonderful because like he's stepped up and knows what he needs to be, but she's got that real patience and that belief in that person, and it's so nice to see because in so many films you'll have the female lead be the person who's the pain in the arse, who's screaming, who doesn't know what to do, who doesn't have that element. And here you have the guys who are shit, whereas the female characters in this are the ones that have the most common sense, who just be, look, do this and do that. Shut the fuck up, calm the fuck down, let's do this. She's very, very capable actress and very, very impressive in this.
Yeah, I think it's a great performance. I think you can see that she is the only person keeping her relationship with Shaun above water. Shaun's doing fuck all.
You haven't booked it, have you?
What's the plan then? The Winchester?
Yeah, and then when she gets the flowers and it says to a dear mum or something, it's like to his mum. Oh,
that was a
God.
Joke. Pow, super mum.
Super mum. First one.
And she's the only one keeping Shaun above water for that matter as well.
Yeah.
As soon as she dumps him, he's out getting pissed with Ed on a school night. But I think she's got some really great character moments. I like when she calls Shaun Flash when he goes to rescue her. Great. What's the plan then, Flash? And then there's that really, really nice moment where Shaun quotes Bertrand Russell and she asks if that was from a beer mat. And he says, Guinness Extra Cold. She says, I won't tell anyone, thanks. And it's just one of those really nice kind of like secret moments that couples share. She's got his back. I love that.
Reassuring, isn't it?
Really reassuring.
Yeah.
And although it's never mentioned that they're back together, in fact, it's probably mentioned, it's mentioned a few times in the pub that they aren't together, specifically. It's a relief to see them together at the end, and Ashfield very much plays her part in that because she generates a lot of love for these characters. Yeah. Very good. So great cast overall. I'm sure we'll be speaking about one or two others later, but the three leads keep everything stitched together perfectly with their love triangle, stuffed full of on-screen chemistry.
Lovely.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by Just Watch, the ultimate movie and TV show streaming guide. Just Watch recommends movies based on your preferences, keeping track of what you've watched, what you liked, and what you didn't to serve up the best movies and shows on your streaming services. Simply install the app on your Android or iOS device, choose your favorite streaming services, and the app will tell you what's available and where to watch it. It's a great way to consolidate all of your streaming services into one easy-to-navigate app. Personally, I am always trying to find out where old movies are available to stream, stuff that you can't get quite so easily, so this is perfect for me. It just saves so much time.
Yeah.
With the Just Watch app, you can check out new movie releases and shows, And it's updated daily, so whether it's the hot new Netflix movie or epic Amazon Prime TV show, you'll find it on Just Watch. And the app's got loads of great features, including the watch list, which lets you save movies and shows to watch in the future. Also, if you've heard about an interesting new movie or show, you can check out the popular feed to find out more and where you can watch it 100% legally. So what are you waiting for? Get the ultimate streaming guide. Install the Just Watch app on your iOS or Android device today, and you can click the link in the podcast description of this show to download the app now.
Nice. It is good. I've downloaded it.
Yeah, great. This podcast of All the Right Movies is also sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is very hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be, really. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now or would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing very well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to All the Right Movies listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional help at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
The middle.
After Shaun and Ed have made their first kills, Shaun puts together a fried gold plan to collect his mother and his ex-girlfriend and hold them up somewhere safe.
Yeah.
We're talking about the plan in theory and in practice. And I'm going to take us off. Firstly, the plan. It's a great sequence, but it's completely flawed because Liz's is surely the best place to go. It's above ground.
Yeah.
Loads more chance of surviving. They only go to Winchester because they can smoke and drink. Idiots. And the how's that for a slice of fried gold? That line was something that started on the set of Spaced when a good suggestion was made or some funny dialogue or something like that. So there's a lot of overspill from that TV show.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about is Shaun and Ed's first port of call, Barbara. We're coming to get you, Barbara. Firstly, I love two threads that are continued here. One is that Ed was so desperate to drive Pete's car, but as soon as he sees Phil's Jag, he's like a panting dog.
Yeah.
When they pull up and go, ooh, hello, it's a pretty boy there. It's gorgeous.
In the midst of all this shit.
Yeah.
It's all he's thinking about.
And the other thread that is continued here is Ed saying outrageous double entendres about and towards Shaun's mother.
Yeah.
Hello, Edward. My, how you've grown. Yeah, you'd better believe it. Outrageous.
Yeah.
Outrageous. And when he's driving, Phil says, you do realise this is a 20-mile-an-hour zone? And Ed replies, oh, yeah. And winks at Barbara. He was just smiling away.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. But one of my favourite parts comes in this scene at Barbara and Phil's place. Specifically when Shaun's trying to get Barbara out of there by throwing some outlandish accusations Phil's way. He says, how much do you love Philip? We're not going to go through all that again, are we? Like, poor Barbara, because she must have... She's trying to brush it off because she's obviously something that she's had to deal with since Shaun was a kid.
Like 16 years, I think she says.
Yeah.
16, 17 years, yeah.
But it's the setup and the dialogue and the execution from both really stand out. What would you say if I told you that over the years... Philip's been quite unkind to me. Well, you weren't the easiest person to live with yourself, Shaun. Mum, he chased me around the garden with a bit of wood. Well, you did call him a you-know-what. Oh, he told you that, did he? Yes, he did. And it's this part? He told you that? Yes, he did. Motherfucker. Shaun. Sorry, Mother. Mum. So funny. So really like equal parts, like really rude, but like really smart writing. One of my favourite lines in the film.
Yeah. You can see where his head's at and he tries to change his own mind of like, get me head out of that space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, brilliant. And then desperate Shaun stoops lower, accusing Philip of abuse. Did you know that on several occasions he touched me? That wasn't true. Made it up. Sorry, shouldn't have
said that. That wasn't true. Sorry, made that up. Shouldn't have said that. I love that. I fucking love that.
It was brilliant. And the moment where Philip comes in the kitchen, yeah. And the big sound design, boom.
Yeah.
When Edgar Wright's direction to Bill Nye was act like Clint Eastwood on Benelin.
Brilliant. He really does. He pulls it off.
And this idea that Shaun and Phil don't get on, that's suggested at Shaun's work, isn't just for this scene. It serves as a really poignant plot point later on. And I think it's just, I mean, there's some really base gags and some, crude jokes, but there's some really, really smart writing going on.
Yeah. Bill Nye's, when he turns around when he's at Shaun's work and he's just standing with his back to him, and then at that turn, Shaun. And it just does that like spin. It's just really theatrical, but at the same time, it's almost like zombie-esque when he's kind of just stood there doing nothing, and then he does that turn. Fantastic.
He's running under a cold tap. A lot of drug nuts running wild
around. There's another thing about this scene, though. Like, if you watch it again, when Shaun is talking to Barbara in the kitchen, if you listen carefully, you can hear Ed revving up the car outside and smashing it into the pole.
Oh, really? I never noticed.
I've never noticed that.
Fantastic.
I only noticed that because the other night when I was watching it again, I had to watch it with headphones on just because there was something else going on in the house. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a brilliant touch because you don't need it. But the fact that it's in there, so watch it again and you can hear Ed revving the car up and smashing it. It's fantastic.
Yes.
And I also know that before they got Penelope Wilton, they sent the script to Helen Mirren to play Barbara. And Helen Mirren replied saying, yeah, I'll do it if I can play Ed because he's clearly the funniest character.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah,
imagine Helen Mirren saying, I'm sorry, Shaun. That would be fucking amazing.
But Penelope Wilton is really, really funny. It's a great performance. We'll talk about her later in the scene later on, but she is very, very funny. And I mean, I like Mirren. Yeah. She's like butter. But I wouldn't swap her out for Penelope Wilton here.
No, I wouldn't.
Certainly not.
No.
Just wonderful. It's fucking great when, like you were saying there, and then they turned up the lizards, which is the next stage of the plan. And he kind of goes through everybody and he's saying, yeah, I'll use the horn, whatever. He's happy that he's just with...
I'll do the honks.
I'll do the honks, yeah. I'll do the honks, yeah, whatever. And he's kind of driving around. And you just get him like climbing up, gets into Liz's flat. And there's just that whole brilliant moment between the two of them where he's like, I've come to take you somewhere safe, as if he's like the hero of the piece. And he keeps getting questioned and keeps getting put down and keep being like, well, fucking hell, this is clearly the best place to be. Obviously, there's food here, there's water here, like Luke said. That is definitely just stay there. Get everyone in there and stay there and wait it out. You've got everything to your advantage. And again, there's some lovely bits of writing here where Diane says to David, well, you don't want to be torn to pieces, do you? Which is obviously what's going to happen to him at the end of the film. And there's all these little bits that are just kind of put in. She's great as well in this. She's
Lucy Davis.
Yeah, Lucy Davis is so fucking funny in this when it's like, right, well, it's getting a bit cramped. So has anyone got any transport? She's like, yes. And he's like, yeah, well, what have you got? No, I've passed my test.
That's brilliant.
I absolutely love that because it's just like, it's just so that's exactly what we would experience in that situation.
She's so excited that she passed her test.
I've got something. What have you got? I've passed my test. That's all you need.
It doesn't help.
It doesn't help at all. And then you get the final reveal of where they're going after they've just had that back and forwards. And Liz is like, right, okay, Flash, well, what's going on here? Right, I trust you. Okay, I'll take it on board. That fucking brilliant wide angle push into him, and it's that hero shot, and he's like, we're going to the Winchester.
Yes.
And everyone's like, oh God. And then the bit when they leave our flat and they're running towards the car, Simon Pegg was the only person, he had a padded cricket bat, so he was the only person that could hit the zombies. And obviously they couldn't afford to pad everything out and make it look realistic, so they just picked stuff up out of the flat. It was like a couple of hockey sticks and an umbrella.
Brilliant.
And they said, like, if you actually hit the extras, you're going to hurt them because they're real things. So that's why Simon Pegg's the only person kind of knocking everyone out of the way, which also works for the characters. Like, yes, I'm in control of this. I'm leading you out of here. Into a stuffed car with someone who's going to die on the way to somewhere that he can't get to. Yeah. This is how you make the middle of a film. It's so fucking funny. Brilliant. Love it.
I think after this, you get that sequence where they are leaving to go to the Winchester. And I think it's a really important sequence for me in the film because I think it demonstrates so well how this film can shift tonally, and it shifts those tonal gears effortlessly because you've got Ed driving the Jag at high speed. using the opportunity basically to barrel into every zombie he can.
Yeah, he's aiming for them, isn't he?
Yeah, just like, he's playing Grand Theft Auto or something, thinks it's hilarious. You got Philip in the back seat complaining about the music being too loud, which that's Meltdown by Ash, which again, Charlotte Hatherley was an Ash at the time, so that's
brilliant.
Edgar Wright getting his girlfriend on the soundtrack there. Then the conversation about Big Al saying dogs can't look up, that gets brought back up again. Diane's amazed by that. Oh, God,
really?
Yeah, really. That's hilarious. But then in the middle of all that, you realise, shit, Philip is going to die here.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of a sudden, you get that really heartfelt dialogue scene between him and Shaun, and Philip's telling him, look, I know it wasn't easy for you, and I just wanted to be someone that you could look up to, and I thought I could be that person. And Shaun, all of a sudden, despite there being like this real animosity between them so far, he's in bits about it. And then Philip's gone, and he's out of there. And it works so well when it potentially could have been out of place. But it fits perfectly, and I think it's partly because this was based on Simon Pegg's relationship with his actual stepfather, which was very difficult when he was growing up. So it's like, the scene is kind of him working all that out with the character of Shaun. And again, it just flips tones again because, he finally gets Ed to stop. And it's one of those scenes where it's funny because you're so frustrated. But when Ed tells him to chill out, and Shaun just starts in the back of the car saying, stop telling me to fucking chill out. And Ed looks so wounded by it.
He really does.
All right.
Another one of those moments.
Yeah. It's really funny. And then you get Shaun, they get out of the car and they've locked Philip in. And it's like that really dramatic moment where Shaun is just getting it home to Barbie, there's nothing left in there of that man you once loved, only for zombie Philip to reach forward and accidentally turn the music off finally. Brilliant stuff, Tony.
Great timing.
There's another lovely moment in that just before where Shaun says to his mom, he's dead, and she says, no, he's not, and you get that as like a denial of no, he's not. Of course he's not. He can't be, but he actually isn't.
Great.
It's a lovely, brilliant touch. That really subtle.
Flipping between genres in like a heartbeat. Yeah, between tones, very, very good.
What is that? What about yours? Hey, who died and made you fucking king of the zombies?
Well, now we're looking at the sequences that directly follow this, where Shaun and his crew find a shortcut to the Winchester.
Yeah. This is great. They don't know where they're going. They're kind of following Shaun's lead. I love that bit where you see the shoes or the cowboy boots from Snake Hips from the bar and ask how close they are. And then Shaun's we're pretty close, obviously, because he's never far from the Winchester, this guy. He's always in there.
He's one of those guys,
Yeah, and that little bit on the soundtrack where you get that and he's being eaten, I just love that. But it's great, and I just love when they get to the back alley and they kind of realise where the Winchester is, and they meet up with Yvonne. She comes back, Shaun! Brilliant. But then you get every character from her life and every character in his life, and they all mirror each other.
Yeah.
And it's such a good moment, especially if you've watched comedy in the UK at that point, and you get so many good duos coming back together. So you've got Simon Pegg and Jess Hynes, who are Tim and Daisy in Space. You've got Martin Freeman and Lucy Davies, who are Tim and Dawn in The Office. You've got Dylan Moran and Tamsin Gregg, who are Bernard and Fran in Black Books. Yeah. And you've got these great duos coming back together, and they were all in each other's shit, and it just makes perfect sense. And I just love it how you see that no matter who you are or your group of friends that you're in and you think you're kind of unique, everyone's got the same bunch of friends. You've always got them people. And he just goes, right, Shaun's taking the lead here. He knows exactly what's going on. And it's just when he turns around, he goes, what's the matter, David? Never taken a shortcut before. And then does that kind of tongue in his lip. I don't know what it is. He's like, never taken a shortcut before. And then just totally bails on that fence. That is hilarious.
I love Yvonne's reaction when she asks him where they're going. He says the Winchester, and she just takes his beat from him and goes, good luck. Good luck. You're fucked. It's the worst place you could go to.
The pub.
Yeah. What this goes into is when Shaun does have that one-on-one fight with the zombie. Brilliant. And I don't know if it's supposed to be a sudden burst of strength from Shaun, or that pole is made of pure steel, or that tree is completely rotten, but it's kind of amazing how he completely impales that zombie to that tree.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. But to me, this is what Shaun of the Dead is all about, because in this one-on-one fight with the zombie, he is pretty rubbish for the most part. If this is an American film, he'd have a gun, or he'd have a machete. Here, reduce using garden furniture, kids' toys.
Yeah.
It's a very,
swing
very...
ball.
A swing
Nah,
ball.
that's rubbish.
And he says brilliant when he gets it. Yes, brilliant.
No, it's not brilliant. It absolutely isn't. It's a very British fight scene,
Mm-hmm.
but all the characters just get their individual little moments to shine here. Ed and David just watching, refusing to get involved, just seeing
Arseholes.
arseholes, just seeing
Tells them as well, doesn't he?
Yeah,
You're doing
feel
all right.
free to step in at any point. Liz and Diane giving him the ID to stop the zombie. That's cool. And there's that lovely bit of comic business where it's all about the time and it's all about how Wright frames the shot where Shaun climbs up the kid's slide to take a look over the fence.
Yeah.
Same
Great
and he's
sight,
obviously
guy.
wrong.
Yeah.
And all you see is his feet going up, comic
Yeah.
beat, come back down. There's
Brilliant.
loads.
How many? Loads.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And I think it's also Diane's best moment in the film because this is like her moment to shine. She
Brilliant.
can take charge here when they've got that idea. Everybody pretend to be a zombie to blend in, which on one hand, that's a really ridiculous plan. But like a lot of the film, it's got just enough logic that you buy it. Because like one thing I hate in films is when you get characters doing stupid things just because the plot needs them to, or for the sake of a joke. Here, I think this plan is just sensible enough that you would probably give it a try. And all those impressions are great. Barbara, miles away, but Diana's still really impressed by it.
That's
It's
so
fab.
funny. That's such a great gag.
It is. It's class. And I think you also get just a great bit between Ed and Shawnee because all their bickering throughout the film, it's really realistic. And it's a line we've already mentioned, but when Ed is like, oh, dude on the night, and he starts arguing with Shaun.
It is the night.
It's the night.
This is the night. He goes, oh, who died who made you fucking king of the zombies? Love it. It's fantastic for all the characters.
Concedes that he is good.
Yeah.
Sean's
Yeah,
is
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about David, and I'm sure we'll be talking about him later. But I mean, an absolute prick.
He's
Yeah.
an asshole.
The
isn't he?
really
worst
well
slimy
played.
prick in the world. Really well played.
Played by
Really
Moran,
well.
because Moran is anything but. Moran is fucking hilarious.
Oh, he is. He
Yeah.
is. But he has got a great line here where he says he didn't want to come. I had followed Shaun, blah blah blah,
Yeah,
because of Captain Wow.
It's like he's struggling to think of something to call him. It's like Captain Wow.
That's a brilliant put down.
Yeah.
It is. It is. Fantastic. Well, I want to talk about them putting another plan into action. It starts off with a great match cut from that moment that you're talking about. Matt, Diane's looking at them. 1, 2, 3, and then bang, they cut to them as zombies headed towards the crowd. Great.
Yeah.
I mean, I've no idea how they're getting away with this, or they think they're getting away, but they do, kind of to a point. All the zombies have pasty faces, weird eyes, and blood dribbling from their mouths. These guys, none of that.
Yeah.
None of that. It's clearly obvious that they're not zombies, but it's really funny to see them like hurriedly shuffle their way through the crowd full of fear as they run that last few meters to the pub. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we see Tyres, the character from Spaced, as a zombie, which is a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're all freaking out at the entrance. Diane's pleading with David to stay in character. That's brilliant. And I do like a few moments here. Firstly, as Shaun does his running buffet act when he jumps up and he realizes how dangerous it is, and he goes, he says, "Oh bollocks!" He's terrified. Really good
All
acting.
you can eat.
And there's a nice moment with David tipping the bin out into the street to smash the window, and Barbara sees the bunch of flowers from Shaun. I think that's a nice touch.
Yeah, great.
And when they get into the pub, David puts himself forward as leader in Shaun's absence, but makes the most unconvincing case for it, and it's swiftly dismissed by everybody. And then he goes on this rant about Shaun. He's got this great line. He says, "How can you put your faith in a man whose idea of a romantic night spot and an impenetrable fortress are the same thing?"
Yeah.
Great line.
Yeah, brilliant.
Really funny line.
He's going to sit and eat peanuts in the dark. That's actually what happens. Anyone like a peanut?
Peanut.
So our gang are holed up, safe and secure, but there's more than one secret being kept between the 5 of them.
The crew.
Our first stop on the crew list is Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, who are the co-writers of the film. And I'm going to go first with the writing. And it is one of the most, if not the most impressive thing about the film for me.
Yeah.
It's stuff full of references, things going on in the background, multiple layers. They only reveal themselves after rewatch, which is the main reason that I'll come back to this time and again.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best scripts of the last 20 years for me. It's really, really smart writing, and I've thought that from the get-go. And I think you can see it's a co-write from the director because his visual style matches perfectly with the dialogue and the beats of the film, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's got a lot more depth than 99% of films in the comedy genre, the romantic comedy genre, the zombie genre.
Yeah. Especially around this time, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The rom-com or wherever you place those words. So all those elements have to be really strong, but it's not as straightforward as girl dumps boyfriend who spends the rest of the film trying to get back together. There are much more complications in there, specifically with the inclusion of David and Di and how their dynamic influences Shaun and Liz's relationship.
Yeah.
Great stuff. There's so much setup and payoff all the way through. I feel as though it takes a genuine talent to be able to execute that. And I think Pegg and Wright, you can't get better in recent years. And we've mentioned pop culture references, whether you love them or hate them, it's stuffed all the way through. And some of the ones that we might not get to or haven't mentioned yet, character of Snake Hips, he's introduced by Ed in the bar, has always been surrounded by women. And later on, it's a gang of female zombies that are feasting on him. Great touch.
Yeah.
Next time I see him, he's dead. Ed says that about Pete, and the next time he does, he is. What do you know?
And the kid in the street as well.
And the kid in the street, exactly. You're dead. Yeah, brilliant. Ed's line, we're coming to get you, Barbara, that's lifted from Night of the Living Dead. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a point made about the use of the word zombie, the Z word. We're not mentioning the Z word. This is a reference, obviously, to classic zombie films that don't really ever use that word.
Yeah.
And finally, Pete screaming at Ed that if he wants to live like an animal, go and live in the shed, you thick fuck.
Yeah.
By the end of the film, that's exactly where he is. Genius.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Complete agreement, really. And you can tell this film was a success because of all the rip-offs that quickly followed. And I've seen a few, stuff like Companies versus Zombies or that one James Corden did, Lesbian Vampire Killers, I think. And they're all
ridiculous.
Awful. They're ridiculous. And the reason they're awful is because they're made by people who either understand horror and can do that reasonably well, but they're just not funny and the gags don't land. Or they're made by people who understand comedy a bit and they've got a few decent jokes in there, but they don't understand horror and all the horror elements don't work. And that comes from the right. And I think what you have with Shaun of the Dead is two writers who understand both genres perfectly and they know how to balance those tones. You can tell watching this, Raising Arizona is one of Edgar Wright's favourite films. Just like you can tell the group watching Evil Dead 2 and Dawn of the Dead, obviously. Yeah. And it's the range of jokes that they get in there is incredible. There's slapstick, there's really great visual gags. I love it when Shaun is channel hopping at home and all the brief snippets of programs tell you what's going on. You get that clip of the Smiths playing Panic, there's Panic on the streets of London. That is just fantastic
really
writing.
Smart.
Really smart stuff. And then just funny lines. I love it when Shaun and Liz are arguing in her flat and he brings up Diane and David. And Liz goes, what? A failed actress and a twat? Your words. And Shaun goes, I did not call Diane a failed actress. Great joke. Great joke.
Yeah.
But like you, Luke, for me, it's how many payoffs this film has and how cleverly it seeds future events. We mentioned it briefly, but how, the flowers in this, he buys the flowers to give to Barbara, tries to pawn them off to Liz instead to make amends, dumps them in the bin outside the Winchester when he gets dumped, which is where he would go. So they're there when David empties the bin and throws it through the window. So Barbara finally gets them before she dies. It's very simple stuff, but it's so well done. And as we mentioned, we get all the lines that get repeated 3 times, but each time with more intensity. Leave him alone. That gets more and more intense each time Shaun delivers that line to Pete. And that great scene in the Winchester where Ed basically foreshadows the entire plot of the rest of the film. And like I say, it's only when you go back to this film 3rd or 4th time, like, shit, he's telling us what's going to happen. It's fantastic stuff. So, in terms of writing a horror comedy, nailing the tone, really understanding how you switch between those two tones and then putting into that genuine character arcs and proper emotion, I think it's just a perfect lesson how you write stuff like that, quite frankly. I don't think it puts a foot wrong.
That foreshadowing, though, it's not in your face. It's not straight. No. You don't. I mean, it took me a lot more than 3 or 4 rewatches because it's coded.
Yeah.
On top of it being hidden, it's coded as well. So if you don't really know, you're not thinking about it, then it would just pass you by.
Yeah, because it's not like Shaun calls Liz the little princess at any time.
Exactly.
In the film.
Yeah, he doesn't call Philip the king.
No.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
Westy, what do you think of the writing?
I'm gonna have to keep your stance on the Edgar Wright angle because I
Okay.
have to.
That's
I'm
cool.
not going to back down from it, but
That's
I do.
cool.
I do really, really appreciate the writing here. But from a point of it being incredibly clever and incredibly intelligent, to me, it strikes me as two guys who fucking love cinema. But I don't think this script was written for anyone else but themselves. I don't think this film was necessarily written as a necessity to be like, we need to make this and make a statement about this and make this film as clever as possible. They were just like, this is what we've done in Spaced for the last however many years. We've referenced films so many times and we've ripped them off so many times. Let's do it with the zombie genre and let's see how it works. This is basically a lesson in what Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg know about the horror genre and about, a romantic comedy and about a British-made film. And that's why they've got Bill Nighy in there. That's why they've got all these... They know what they're doing because they've spent the whole lives preparing to make this film. It's not like someone's handed them like, oh, you need to make a Rom-Zom-Com. It's a zombie film that's also a comedy. Can you do that? They've done this off their own back on 4 million quid. Let's not look at that in any kind of derogatory way. 4 million quid to make a film is fuck all.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nothing. And what they get from that is everything that they've experienced their whole lives. They've watched so many films and they have understood the language of cinema so well that they can write this as Edgar Wright's debut film on 4 million quid and absolutely fucking nail it. But it's just a bit thin. It hasn't got, they haven't created a universe. They haven't created something where you just go, this world, let's make a bunch of films out of this world. It's just based in their world and it's a glimpse into their world. And I love that. And I do think it's clever. I do think it's intelligent. But at the same time, I think it's easy for them to do. And I'm not taking anything away from the film from that point because I think they've spent so long researching by just watching films and being into films. And this is their chance to just go, there you go, there's some money, just write a script about zombies. And they've had a whale of a time doing it. And it fucking works. That's it. That's all there is to it. There's no more, there's no less. It's just them having a great time. And that's why I love this film. You've got to live something like this or be mates with somebody and experience something to be able to put stuff like this in a script and for it to work and for everyone to understand it.
Right about what you know.
It's that is exactly it. This is their whole lives watching zombie films.
Yeah. Very good. Well, the writing team, Pegg and Edgar Wright, bonded over their love of Dawn of the Dead when they first met on British TV show Asylum. They worked together on Spaced, and the idea for the film came when Pegg and Wright were shooting an episode of Spaced called Art, where Pegg's character stays up all night playing Resident Evil 2 after taking a bad dose of speed.
Yeah, that'll do it.
After they wrapped, they were in a taxi on the way to the rap party, and Wright suggested doing a film about zombies. There are conflicting reports of this, with Edgar Wright being quoted as saying that he was round Pegg and Frost's flat for drinks and suggested it. But either way, the original title of the film was Tea Time of the Dead, which not necessarily as memorable.
No, or makes no sense.
No. Wright liked the idea of these two buffoons who were completely oblivious to what was going on around them after a heavy night on the source, and it was inspired by a couple of things. Firstly, the foot and mouth disease outbreak that happened in the UK in 2001.
Yeah.
Wright was oblivious to this because he hadn't checked the news for weeks, and when he finally did, he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. And another inspiration was after playing Resident Evil all night, he went to a local shop for some milk at about 5 a.m. and the streets were deserted and eerie. And he thought, what would a British person do if there was a zombie apocalypse? He said, quotes, in American movies, everyone had high-power weapons. What would somebody do without all of that? Kind of what you were saying about the stuff in the garden, Matt, with the zombie.
Yeah.
Pegg said, we didn't want to parody zombie films. We wanted to parody the rom-com. And he makes excuses. He says, Richard Curtis is a lovely man, but we pitched it as Richard Curtis shot through the head. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's often hinted at, but never confirmed, the source of the zombie outbreak. In a radio broadcast, when Shaun's walking to the shops, we hear that a space probe re-entering the Earth's atmosphere broke up over England, blah, blah, blah. And this is similar to a suspected cause of the outbreak in Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
I fucking knew it! What did I tell you? Big Al was right. Okay. But dogs can look up.
Next up, we're going to be talking about the music in the film. Westy, what do you think of the score and soundtrack for Shaun of the Dead?
This is the part of the film that really lets it down for me.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
There's stuff on here I just don't like. I wouldn't listen to.
I agree.
Is too on the nose. Coming straight off the back of what I've done, Casino, The Matrix, and then this. So I've done, Casino soundtrack, The Matrix soundtrack, which is two of my favorites, and then this is not top 5. I'm breaking the.
My God,
I'm breaking the mold. But no, I'd say that the score, when you need it to be, it's there. Notably the end, when everything gets swamped and it's all very much like a beat, and it drives the action, and it works when it gets more brutal and it gets a little bit more dark, and it's got that real 80s 90s kind of like Carpenter-esque synth that's in there if you really need to listen to it, but it's got that the thing kind of drive to it,
definitely.
But the songs, I'm sorry, like, I know Edgar Wright is into his music, but he's not into the same music that I am. Tarantino's soundtrack I'll buy all day, and Edgar Wright soundtrack I find a little bit, even Baby Driver didn't work for me soundtrack wise. And I think, opening with Ghost Town by the Specials, great. I've heard it a million times, and it's just a little bit too easy. We said in the Casino episode, like, Scorsese put songs in there that really accentuate the scene and make the scene something else, even though it's on the nose. And you just go, fuck, that's hand in hand. This is almost like an arm around the shoulder and getting you in a headlock, and just be like, it's Ghost Town by the Specials. Do you get it? It's like, yeah, I get it. Stop rubbing me fucking hair. And it's just the use of Queen in this film. Highlander, one of my favorite films of all time. Highlander soundtrack,
I agree
top
with
5.
that.
Kind of Magic, top 5. Easy. But Don't Stop Me Now and You're My Best Friend by Queen are two of my most hated fucking songs in the history of my life. I can't listen to them again. Don't Stop Me Now coming on really, really pushes the film down for me, because it's like, oh God, that's just so obvious. The soundtrack really lets the film down, and I wish it had a much smarter soundtrack where it was just a little bit more off kilter. I would rather have heard the Batman soundtrack over Don't Stop Me Now. I'll be perfectly honest. If they'd played Party Man at that point, when they wanted to destroy that album anyway, that would have been hilarious. Because it's so, well, we've got to beat them up to a song we fucking hate. But Queen kicks in, and it doesn't really work for me on them levels. I think the score and the soundtrack are the only things that are, one, ignorable, and then when you do realise what they are quite annoying.
Wow, how do you like that, Matt? A retort?
It takes a very, very special score and soundtrack to really resonate with me.
Yeah.
And this one is maybe one where you think, yeah, this is because they only had £4 million to play
forgetful,
with.
isn't it?
And it's kind of the bit where you have to cut corners, I guess. I do like the original bit, like Westy says, that stabbing synth music when the zombies attacking. That's good. That's fine. The rest of it, yeah, I get it. It's all for a purpose. It works for that purpose. But yeah, it's just fine. It's I can't really get enthused about it, I would say, like I do with the other parts of the film.
Yeah, I mean, it is forgettable. It's certainly not top 5 Westy by any stretch.
By any stretch.
The songs, majority of the songs, I'm not a fan of. But, I mean, it's not catering to me, is it?
No.
You mentioned Ghost Town. I like that it goes from non-diegetic to diegetic at the start. Although the choice of the song is dead on the nose. I like that choice. The opening bars at the start of the film, then it's on the jukebox in the Winchester. I think it's very easy to lose the music in the film because it's not in your face.
Yeah.
There's so much dialogue over the top as well.
There's a lot of dialogue, so much dialogue. Yeah. But there is a real standout for me. Well, there are two, actually. I'll speak about one later. But there's a standout moment where the score really ramps up. It's where Shaun, Ed, Diane, and David are pointing the corkscrew and things at each other, and the tension rises to fever pitch. The Mexican stand-up. And for me, a lot of that down is to the crescendo of noise that's in the score. It turns things up into a frenzy. It really does. It really does add to the drama in that moment. But there are some smart things going on. Well, I might call them smart. You might call them smart, Matt. But Westy, you might not. And I'll go over them. Just based on what you've said, based on previous comments,
absolutely
Westy.
Fair enough. That's absolutely fair enough.
The soundtrack and score, there are a few cues from Dawn of the Dead that make the way into the score, notably the one that plays at the start over the Universal logo. And the music that plays when Shaun is going through his fried gold plans, the dun, 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 that's in Dawn of the Dead as well.
Right, yeah.
There's that reference to Morricone's score from The Thing that you mentioned, Westy.
Yeah.
When Shaun walks into the shop at the start, originally they wanted Something in the Air by Thunderclap Newman, or We Got to Get It Out of This Place by The Animals. Again, very, very on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
But they were too expensive, so they settled upon Bollywood-style music that's playing. And the lyrics translate to, the dead have come back to life. This is not a prank.
Nice.
And yeah, they wanted Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor instead of If You Leave Me Now on in the Winchester.
Nice.
But that was going to be too expensive. 20 grand they paid for If You Leave Me Now.
Wow.
And we'll talk about Queen, I'm sure, in the next segment.
No.
Some great crew work with the screenplay and music, vital elements, of course, but we haven't mentioned David Dunlap's cinematography and makeup effects artist Stuart Conrad, who do some great work in the film as well.
Yeah, definitely.
The end.
The end is near for Shaun and his crew, whose public house shelter can't hold for too much longer. We start by talking about the zombified pub landlord being taken care of to the strains of Queen, and end with last orders being called on 3 members of the team. Matt, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'd love to, because once you get into the Winchester and they've barricaded themselves in,
This is what it's all about.
Yeah, you get one of my favourite shots in the film, and it's when Diane is stood up and just switching out through all the channels on the TV, and it's all reflecting on her face because they're all off air. I love that shot. I just think it's really eerie. It's really well done. Mm-hmm. And I think, though, you've got to bring it back to what Westy is, been building towards, which is the use of Queen in this sequence, especially with John, because
building towards.
Well, I didn't know you were going to, but you clearly have.
Thank you, mate.
Well, he's singing, like, I don't disagree, man. Like, in general, I just don't like Queen at all. Just absolutely far, far from the type of music I would listen to.
Sorry to all you Queen fans out there.
Yeah, sorry. I know I'm in the minority. Apparently, I don't understand why.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Outrageous.
But the thing is, I think it's worth remembering, Don't Stop Me Now, If You Leave Me Now, they are exactly the kind of crap songs you'd get on a pub jukebox.
Definitely.
So it makes absolute sense that it's this song that starts. And I have to say, if I could go back in time and rewatch any scene from cinema, this would be in the conversation. I just thought it was so well done. It's so perfectly choreographed how everyone is in sync when they're laying into John with the pool cues. And the funniest bit is when Wright cuts back to Barbara and Diane watching, who are horrified, but they can't help bobbing along, but they're in time. The music, perfectly in sync, a little dance. It's so funny, that bit. And obviously you've got Diane pitching in, trying to help with the darts, but that just gets Shaun in the head instead. Just hilarious stuff. I absolutely love the sequence. And I think, no, it's not like the first example of a pop song being used in this kind of comic manner over an action sequence. But what I do find is that so many films that came after this try to do the same thing. I remember I watched Kick-Ass not too long after Shaun of the Dead came out.
Right.
And I tried to do the same thing with it's the American Trilogy by Elvis.
Right.
Elvis,
Yeah, which I didn't think worked at all. And I think what's interesting, though, is that it all happens because Ed has decided to throw a couple of quid into the fruit machine, which is unbelievably stupid, but completely in character for him. Yeah, and I love his reaction when Liz grabs him and pulls him away. He's like, oh, get off. He's really annoyed at her. Because,
he's still looking at what he's won as well, hasn't he? If you watch him, he's looking down at the tray.
He's won on the fruity, and he's absolutely delighted by that. And it just gets that balance between humour and horror so well done here, because, we'll mention him again, Dylan Moran. For anyone outside the UK, more commonly known for doing stand-up, and we all think he's really good at it, but I love the bit where he's run through the back to try and turn the fuses off, and he's just panicking, and then he sees how many zombies are bursting through the back door. I think that's a really great bit of acting from him there. Like, his reaction where he's just shaking, and he's just backing away. Yeah, I do really love this sequence. I'm a big, big fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, I am a Queen fan. I'm not the biggest Don't Stop Me Now fan, because it is, like you said, it's everywhere. It's always played at parties and any function you've ever been to throughout the years. It's always on. The reason that it's choreographed so well is because all the actors had earbuds in listening to the song at the same time.
Yeah,
a really risky move that could have backfired because they didn't have clearance for the song, and they basically wrote a begging letter to Brian May from Queen who apparently was a sweetheart by all accounts.
Yeah. Do you know what the backup song was?
No.
Rasputin by Boney M.
Oh, I would have preferred that.
That'd be much better.
Russia's greatest love machine.
Yeah,
Get it in there.
Yeah. Love it to the Russian
Great.
Queen.
I think this moment is really funny. A few things, like while it's all going on, kill the Queen, great line. And when David does come back from trying to check the fuses, Shaun screaming, "Why is Queen still on?"
Yeah.
But there's a really, really funny gag just before the song kicks in. The zombies are all around. The camera circles the group, similar to the shot at the start of Evil Dead 2. And Shaun puts his hand on Liz's shoulder. Camera goes round. Ed does the same to Barbara. And then out of nowhere, Zombie John pops up and puts his hand on David's shoulder and makes this over-top groan. Really funny.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And John is played by Steve Emerson. He's like an actor, an old school stuntman whose work dates back to Dr. No. He worked on Dr. No. And Pegg said that he worked on the 1975 film Brannigan, where his character was thrown into a jukebox by John Wayne. So he was an old hand at it, and he encouraged them to hit him really hard, and they did.
Wow.
Emerson also said he got to his last day on set, and he's of an age, he just wanted to do scenes, wanted to go home. And one of the ADs came up to him and was like, "Oh, Steve, they need to get you back in. They need to get eye line for a reaction shot from Simon Pegg." He's like, "For fuck's sake, an eye line, anyone could do that." So he stomped in really, really grumpy, but it was all a setup. And Edgar Wright just stood up and said, "Can we have a round of applause, please, for Steve Emerson?" Because he was that much of a legend in the
fantastic.
Sun Sea. So Steve Emerson said, "I literally cried because I got this round of applause, and they didn't need me for this eye line shot."
Oh, what a touching moment.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, lovely.
Well, I want to talk about the events that directly follow this when they work out that Big Al was right and that the Winchester can shoot bullets in more ways than one. Shaun looking increasingly like Mike Vronsky from The Deer Hunter with his tie around his head.
Yeah.
Establishing the credentials of his would-be marksman or markswoman, whatever, markspeople. Ed's so confident when Shaun asks if anybody's shot a gun before. He does it again. Oh, yeah. And his experience being that he once shot his sister with an air rifle.
In the leg.
Surely that's the last person you want behind the trigger. Ed insisting on calling the bullet shells because it sounds cooler, which it does, but not the time or place for that.
No.
A great callback to playing Time Splitters at the start. Top left, reload, cock it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love again that Shaun is not a crack shot. He misses about 80% of them. Mm-hmm. A really nice touch for the character. And actually the gun from which the pub takes its name, the Winchester, is the same model that was used in Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, it was, Winchester 66.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going from emotional scenes to more emotional scenes, like the end of this film totally makes this film what it is. It's just so beautifully impactful. It just switches, like we've said all the way through, but it just switches this dynamic. When Shaun's mom, you find out she's been bitten and she's sitting with Liz and they have that really close relationship that isn't going to last. That's heartbreaking in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Shaun comes to find out what's wrong with her. That's heartbreaking in itself. Ed comes over to find out what's wrong with her. That's heartbreaking. And everyone cares about everybody.
Yeah.
And it really comes together in this. And it's just a dialogue. And it's like everyone's mom. Mm-hmm. It's just the universal British mom right here.
Yeah.
If you want to know what a British mom sounds like, it's this. I didn't want to be a bother.
Yeah,
I thought you'd be upset. That was the man in the pajamas.
Awful.
And our last line of it's been a funny sort of day, hasn't it? Still trying to play it down.
Yeah.
Still not trying. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Don't you worry about it. Everything's all right. When I love Edgar Wright is when he's clever and when he's trying not to be clever. That's when I love him. It's when he's trying to be clever and I go, nah. But when he's not trying to be clever, which is David's death, which is an absolute fucking joy. It's a joy to behold. You've been putting up with this guy, this wanker, for an hour and 20 minutes, and he's just tried to shoot Shaun because there's no shells left, so he can't.
Yeah. That's the only thing that stops it as well.
Yeah.
Real
exactly.
drama, that.
And it's brilliant. It's like, and you see that realization in his face, but you know how that feels to be on the wrong side of everyone in the pub. And you're like, I want to leave. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
None of you fucking get my shit. And everyone's kind of been there, so you kind of relate to that. Moves away from the door, away from danger, and you just get the zombie just tapping on the window. And he apologizes to Diane, and then she says, I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. And just before he gets a chance to apologize to Shaun, he's pulled out. you should feel some remorse there, but you don't as an audience. You're like, yes, great. And then you have, basically, because you've got Shaun's mom's death and you've got David's death, that's the two classic zombie trope deaths. Somebody that I love, I've got to kill because they've turned. Or somebody that's part of the group has been pulled in and has everything ripped out of them. Like, that was Romero's like two go-to deaths.
Yeah, of course.
Like, that's in every single zombie film. And he does it so well with the two characters that you want to see in them roles. That's how well, I'm sure Pegg's got something to do with that as well, and how well it's written. But when he starts pulling all the innards out of David, you kind of like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a great show. It's a great effect.
I'm enjoying this. This really works. And then his head comes off. Yeah. And then Diane's like, I'm coming for you, David. Even though, like, and then you know in that moment, she really loved him. And it's heartbreaking because she just like goes into the crowd and you're like, Jesus Christ.
I think what Wright does amazingly is, we've been mentioning, balancing those tones, not only comedy and horror, but real drama, as Barbara goes, stirs up real emotion so much so that Pegg and Frost cut the scene and were crying effectively thinking it was their real mother that was dying. Yeah. Great performance from Pegg.
Yeah.
And added to the comedy, drama, the horror, we've got real nail-biting tension in that standoff, that Mexican standoff. And then the layers go much deeper when Diane reveals that she knows that David is in love with Liz. And after all of this, as it's getting to fever pitch, a gag. You're the one who's gone from being chartered accountant to Charlton Heston. I'm not a chartered accountant. Well, you look like one. Yeah. I'm a lecturer. You're a twat. Yeah. All in the space of about 2 minutes. It's unbelievable. Really well executed. Kudos to all involved. But Edgar Wright handles that amazingly well.
Yeah. Because the other thing is, Luke, like you mentioned there, like they did get genuinely upset, and that's because at this point in the schedule, they were starting to run behind, so they were working like 16-hour days.
Right.
Simon Pegg was sleeping on set because he didn't have time to go home, get some sleep, and come back. And it was the height of summer, so everyone was really hot. It was really sticky. And apparently Penelope Wilton is just as lovely in real life as you think she is. So that's why they got genuinely cut up. And Simon Pegg, like, also it just happened, like his mum had come to see some of the filming, so she was there, and he said he had like this weird moment where he thought, actually, she really looks like Penelope Wilton. So that's why they got so caught up in it. So yeah, there were a lot of teas after us. But what's funny about Dylan Moran, though, was he did act like a bit of a diva at this point. Like, he genuinely hated this death scene. Like, because when he's getting dragged through that window, that's made of sugar glass. But he went up to Neva Park, who's obviously the producer, and he got in a full-blown argument with her. Like, he accused her of putting him in a life-threatening position. And she was like, mate, sugar glass, you're going to be fine. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's something that I've always thought, that David is kind of a mirror image of David Sumner, Dustin Hoffman's character from Straw Dogs, particularly when he's on the ground with that gun, looking upwards. He's got the glasses. He looks a bit like Hoffman. And he's been pushed to that point as well. But I do want to talk about Penelope Wilton just a little bit, because at first sight, it seems that Barbara hasn't really got a clue what's going on. She's just smiling her way through the whole thing, which is quite funny in itself. But then we find out that she's been bitten and realize that because she's faced with this like unknowable, unthinkable, she's got no idea how to react. So she puts a brave face on things, just like she does when trying to keep things amicable with Shaun and Phil. And I think that's superb writing for me. Executed amazingly well by Penelope Wilton, who deserves her time in the limelight here. I think that's a great performance.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
She's fantastic.
Really good.
Do you know, I don't think I've got it in me to shoot my flatmate, my mum, and my girlfriend all in the same evening.
So with Diane and David paving the way for the crowd of zombies to flood the Winchester, Shaun, Liz and Ed are outnumbered. And we're talking about this moment, which leads to our satisfactory conclusion. I'm going to kick us off with the last stand as the zombie horde make their way through the barricade and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ed starts off with a Molotov cocktail, but gets completely sidetracked when he sees a reanimated Pete. Shawnee, look who it is! And Shaun screams, fuck a doodle-doo! It's great. Ed's own ineptitude, lack of awareness of what's going on around him as he's undoing, because he sees Pete and he's got a Molotov cocktail, but that goes out the window because he's seen Pete. But it's great when Shaun shoots Pete. I said, leave him alone. I can't match you for sheer power
so
from the start of the episode, Westy. But yeah, it really is satisfying.
Well,
Nick Frost screaming as well. That's really good.
Oh yeah,
like when he's
the one in the arm and one in his neck.
Yeah, that's really good.
And this bar scene reminds me of Desperado a little bit. Maybe I'm stretching the references a little too far, but it always reminds me of it. The bar scene in Desperado. But the music here is the second standout. I talked about it when we talked about the soundtrack. They're all trapped behind the bar, surrounded by flames and zombies. The shells are out of bounds. They've got nowhere to go. And the music really adds to this frantic feeling that they're totally fucked. There's no way out. It really kind of like the walls are closing in, and that music really helps that. It does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many horror films I've seen with a kind of basic similar scenario to this that don't have as intense an ending as this. Like when the zombies have finally burst through and they're getting overwhelmed, it's just so engaging. There's so much tension here because they're just outnumbered so badly. And I just think, this is still a horror comedy. This is a film where I've been laughing my head off at it. And all of a sudden, I'm just so caught up in the emotion of it and so caught up in the characters. And I think that's such an achievement that they've spun it on a dime like that and just got you so invested at this point.
Great.
And like I say, when it comes to genuine emotion, then you've got that goodbye to Ed in the cellar, because that's right up there. Because this whole thing with Ed, for me, it passes the Hudson test, which is, for me, when you watch Aliens, and it gets the bit where the xenomorphs are coming through the ceiling, they're coming up the floor, and they grab Hudson, and that's where he's get killed. I always go, oh, man,
I know.
Not that guy.
Yeah.
I really wanted him to get out of there, really wanted him to live. It's like when you watch Dog Soldiers and Spoon gets killed.
Yeah.
It's the similar reaction. Oh, man, that guy.
Yeah, but he has to go.
But he has to go. Because that gives you the emotion, and it's the same with Ed every single time. I was like, oh man, can't believe he's being bitten.
I know.
Even though he's an oaf and he's so so offensive and he's been more of a hindrance than a help, it's still really gutting to see him not make it. And I think it's just played so well between Pegg and Frost when they're saying goodbye, because that real life friendship is obviously really feeding into it. I think the lighting in the cellar with that smoke come down from upstairs and that sound of the zombies just getting through that cellar door looks fantastic, sounds fantastic. The shot where they just like touch heads and he gives them the cigarette and the rifle, and you do think, shit, what would I do in that situation? Like, it's such a fucking quandary, like his best friend. And like I say, it's just all of a sudden it's just boiled down to the emotion, and it's played so perfect tonally. It's not hammy, it's not OTT, it's just right. And you've got one more example of a line which harks back to earlier, where Ed, he gets one last fart in. He says, I'll stop doing them when you stop laughing. And Pegg's delivery, I'm not laughing. Oh,
yeah, the delivery's great. Yeah, it really is.
It's brilliant. And it's Ed's kind of allowance for Shaun to move on away from him. Like, I think you guys should make a go of it.
Yeah.
It's a double-barreled.
Really striking.
Yeah.
I like when they're discussing how many shells they've got. They've only got 2 shells, and you can just hear Ed in the background. I don't mind being eaten.
Like, I'll just stay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's just from that point when they come out of the cellar and you've got them against all odds, right? Here we go. Everyone's gone. What's going to happen now? And it's a classic zombie movie trope. It's a classic horror movie trope where you get to that point where it's like, oh, what's going to happen? It's almost like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park moment. It's like, and then that rescue. And with it being a Von who comes back and the army come back, it's very reminiscent to me, like 28 Days Later when the army show up.
Yeah.
And there's Edgar Wright has not had any more fun than he has at this moment in directing this film. There's the army. They've got massive guns. It's going to be absolute carnage. Right, what we're going to do, crash zoom, crash zoom, crash zoom. And then blood everywhere. Crash zoom, blood, 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 crash for about 20 minutes. It's fucking ages. He's having a lovely time here with the army turning up. But then when you see Yvonne, it's like, shit. Yeah, Shaun.
Yeah,
she's got a golf club. Lovely. She's got a golf club. She's the only one left.
Yeah,
and it's heartbreaking for me.
Glad someone
just
made
like,
it.
Are you? It's just you two, and just like glad somebody made it, which is what you're saying about their relationship at the start of the film.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is beautiful because the way she delivers the line at the end of the film is like it's so much more nuanced, or it's got a lot more impact, but at the same time it's a lot slower.
She's been through it, hasn't she?
Yeah.
She's had her own film somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's one of them zombies, not Edgar Wright, like in the middle getting shot up. I'm sure one of them's him.
He's one of the ones on the news report
Yeah.
walking through a field who just
Right.
drops down. One of them who's in the scene's Chris Martin.
Yeah.
Oh, from Coldplay.
Yes,
That's why it's so satisfying.
Yeah, he cycles past the phone booth, doesn't he?
he does. Yes. And then he shows up again as Chris Martin supporting Zombie.
Zombied, yeah.
Yeah, 2
But yeah,
cameos.
I think the end of this film totally makes this film what it is. And this as an ending of a zombie film, it's exactly what you want to see.
There was something that Edgar Wright had trouble with though when he got to this bit, because he wanted to end this shot actually with a huge crane shot. He wanted to show the extent of the zombie horde.
All right.
Advancing on them.
Nice.
But throughout the film, he had a very, very fractious relationship with the DP, who we mentioned, David Dunlap.
Right.
And Dunlap had said to him, this is a time suck. To sustain that shot for as long as it was intended, it would just die on screen. It'd become a pretty big action movie. It didn't seem like the moment to slow it down. But because, like I said, they'd been getting into real arguments throughout, and by this stage they were barely speaking, Wright just dug his heels in, got really stubborn about it, and he got the shot only for it to be the first thing he cut out. And he said afterwards, yeah, you know what? Dunlap was absolutely right. It was a rookie mistake. If you've got 8 hours of shooting or less, don't do a fucking crane shot.
Good advice to everybody listening, aspiring filmmakers.
Yeah.
And right at the end, there's that great moment in the shed, because you think that because Liz has moved in, Shaun's been banished to the shed to play video games. That's the only place he can do.
Yeah.
And Ed isn't in shot yet. And then the computer voiceover says, player 2 has ended the game. I've never been happier to see a zombie.
Oh, the same.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Ed!
Yeah.
So consistent with the rest of the film, Shaun of the Dead ends on a joke with the Queen classic "You're My Best Friend" and its opening line, "Ooh, you make me live."
Reception and awards.
Prior to the release of the film, Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright thought it was only fair to send a copy to George A. Romero for his blessing. Wright said, "We got a call from him later that night, and he couldn't have been sweeter about it."
Nice.
And he liked it so much that he invited Pegg and Wright to appear as zombies in Land of the Dead. They're credited as photo booth zombies.
Yeah.
Nice.
At the premiere of the film, the fictitious brand Hog Lumps were distributed to all attendees. Wright's brother designed the packaging. The description on the packaging read, "Hairy pork rinds."
Romero as well didn't get that reference to "We're coming to get you, Barbara," did he? Until Wright
that's
explained it to him later on the telephone call.
Right.
Fucking hell.
The film was a huge success on a very small budget of £4 million, or around $6 million. It returned $30 million worldwide. It may not sound like much, but from a cast and crew of nobodies and a British film to boot, it did very well for itself.
Hugely.
It also did very well critically. Roger Ebert gave the film, what do you think out of 4 fellas? Here it comes.
3.
Both on the money. Fantastic. Roger said, instead of focusing on the undead and trying to get the laughs there, it treats the living characters as sitcom regulars whose conflicts and arguments keep getting interrupted by annoying flesh eaters.
That's what we've said, but we've said it better.
Yeah.
At more length.
He has been maybe more succinct, but, we said it better.
Definitely more succinct. One thing we are not is succinct.
The Associated Press said, the pasty, scruffy Pegg shows a surprising amount of range for the unlikely hero of a zombie flick.
Wow.
Pasty, scruffy Pegg. I don't think that's... surely pasty, scruffy Shaun, maybe, but I mean, not Pegg.
No, that's not him.
Bit personal.
Not a documentary. The BBC said, side-splitting, head-smashing, gloriously gory horror comedy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now the film has a score of 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb and a big 92% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Big.
On top of all this praise, Quentin Tarantino himself put it in his top 20 movies made since 1992 list. He and Wright have built quite the friendship since, and I'm sure that's a crew that we can worm our way into if we play our cards right, fellas.
Oh, totally.
Predictably, Shaun of the Dead didn't make any waves at the Oscars or Golden Globes that year, but it did get 2 BAFTA nominations, one of which was Best British Film. It got more success in the lower key awards ceremonies, won Best Screenplay at the British Independent Film Awards and Best Horror Film at the Saturn Awards.
Nice.
And with much praise being heaped on the film, Wright sent name tags like Shaun's to all the people who said nice things. Among them, Stephen King emailed Wright back saying that he was wearing his, and when Pegg met George A. Romero, he had his on.
No way.
Which is a nice touch.
Great.
Classy guy. Classy guy.
He had red on him.
So a debut as fresh and exciting as any in recent memory, with audiences and critics unanimous in their praise.
Oh, yeah.
Sequels and influence.
The success of Shaun of the Dead saw a 4-issue comic book miniseries based on the film released in 2005. Prior to this, Pegg and Wright had written a comic strip for 2000 AD called There's Something About Mary, focusing on supermarket girl Mary, your girl Matt, the day prior to the zombie outbreak. Pegg and Wright did play around with the idea of a genuine sequel called From Dusk Till Shaun, but they were never really that serious about it.
No.
However, this idea was immortalised in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse from 2018, where a billboard advertising the film can be seen in Times Square.
Mm-hmm.
There were movies released in the years that followed that took direct inspiration from the movie's title and the plot. Matt, you mentioned a few of them earlier.
Yeah.
There were others as well. The Spanish-Cuban film Juan of the Dead,
Right.
which is a nice play on that. And then the Singapore film Shaun of the Dead. And then also Shed of the Dead, but that is from Britain.
Right.
All of them panned, apart from Juan of the Dead, which has apparently got very good reviews.
Okay.
It is the best one.
Oh,
It's the only one that's any good. In the wake of the COVID pandemic, Pegg and Frost got back together for a short, a play on the plan scene from Shaun of the Dead, where Shaun gives Ed advice on how to stay safe during the pandemic.
yeah.
So no direct sequels to Shaun of the Dead, but it does form part of what would later be called the Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy. Hot Fuzz followed Shaun, The World's End followed that, all notable for their colour scheme mirroring the flavours of Cornetto ice cream. Strawberry or red for Shaun of the Dead, original or blue for Hot Fuzz, and minty or green for The World's End.
Yeah.
Wright got the idea for the Cornetto in Shaun after he woke up one morning with a stinking hangover. He ate a Cornetto which cured his ills and is still his hangover cure of choice.
Well, try that.
Wright sees these films as an homage to the Dollars Trilogy, films that share similar themes and actors without being specifically connected. The Cornetto in question only made an appearance in Hot Fuzz after they were given free strawberry Cornettos for the Shaun premiere, expecting the same on Hot Fuzz. They didn't get them. And in an interview after Hot Fuzz, Wright was asked if he was going to make a trilogy, and he joked that he would, like the Three Colours trilogy by Krzysztof Kieslowski.
Yeah.
It was a silly joke that stuck, he explained. So this leads us to our third Patreon question, and this one is from Robert Potwin. Hello, Robert.
Hello,
Robert.
Matt.
He asked very simply, how would you rank the 3 films in the Cornetto trilogy? Westy?
It's very, very easy for me. It's The World's End will be third. It's the one that I've visited the least, the one that I enjoyed the least. It's a good film, but again, all the issues that I've raised with Edgar Wright, that's the one that's just too much, and you don't get enough relief from it. Hot Fuzz will be second. I enjoyed it, but again, the references were far too familiar for me to enjoy, and Shaun of the Dead will be definitely the best of the 3.
Matt, do you see it differently?
Slightly differently, yeah, because I get different things from all 3 of them, really. I think Shaun of the Dead is just the most complete out of the 3. I think it's the most honed. I think it's just so perfectly structured and it's really tight, which I don't really get from the other 2. I think Hot Fuzz is the funniest, and it's got Timothy Dalton in there as well, which is a big plus for me. And
I'm a slasher, and I must be stopped.
the prices. He's fantastic. He's so good in that. And then The World's End, which is the one I kind of needed to watch the most to really get around to, but I think it's the one that's their most ambitious film in terms of what they wanted to be about. You know, it's got, you know, some pretty hefty themes in there about addiction and growing up or not growing up. And I think that's the one where you watch and you think, from a purely like visual perspective, Wright has really grown as a director. Like the action in there is vastly superior to the action in the other 2. So it does depend on what kind of mood I'm in, but I would go from 3 to 1. Generally speaking, I'd go Hot Fuzz, World's End, Shaun.
Hot Fuzz last.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's really not much between them.
Right, okay. I would rank them like Westy, as they were released. I much preferred Shaun above them all, but constant rewatches has brought Hot Fuzz right up there for me, and it is neck and neck with Shaun, just a little bit behind it for me.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think that The World's End has the same rewatchability as both. I just wish, I really, really, really wish that they didn't turn into aliens halfway through the film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That really, and that's just a personal thing. That just doesn't appeal to me, because the first half of the film is great. And like you said, there's some really interesting themes in there, Matt, and, relatable themes talking about moving into middle age and ambitions and not fulfilling your potential and being stuck in the past. I love all that, but the alien thing just doesn't do it for me.
Right. Okay.
Turns me right off. So I think we're all in agreement. 3 great films, all worthy of us covering them at some point on the podcast. Maybe not in the immediate future, but certainly in the distant.
Yeah.
And if recent reports are to be believed, we may be getting the Wright, Pegg, Frost dream team back together sometime in the near future, which would be fantastic.
Very welcome. Yeah.
Love to see that.
All the Right Movies ranking.
Now to the final act of our podcast. It's the talked about All the Right Movies ranking. This is where we summarize and score the film out of 10, and I'm going to take the first shot. Short and sweet for me here. You heard me banging on about the film for the last 2 hours plus, and I haven't said one negative thing about it. It's not a grower, this film. I loved it immediately, but as I said, there's so much to pick up that rewatches are a must. It's consistently hilarious, really smart writing, performances, and direction. It's an easy 10. Just like that.
Wow.
Westy, what about you?
I'm going to go with the outlook I've got over the whole film. I have this thing with Edgar Wright, and I have this thing with Edgar Wright's films, and I am invested in them, but I just don't feel like I have enough to be invested in, and that it does feel very familiar, and it does feel very light in tone, but that came after this. This was where I went to the cinema and I went, yeah, fucking hell, someone's making films that I understand. Someone's making films that I get, and someone's making films that I want to make. This makes perfect sense. And I've watched it very, very regularly ever since I saw it out the cinema for 18 years. And you can't really turn your nose up with something like that. It's always a film I'd recommend to people. It's always a film I'd say, if you haven't seen it, please watch it. I don't like horror. It isn't. I don't really like British comedy. It's not really that. It's something completely different.
Yeah.
If you love cinema and if you love really good films that are on for, a good hour and 40 minutes and you'll be entertained, and the performances are right, and it was made at the right time, and they had enough experience in the industry to create something like this on 4 million quid.
Yeah.
And we're still talking about it now. Tarantino will turn around and say it's one of the best films made in the last 20 years. And you know what? He's not wrong. So on this film alone, it is that good, and it is worth anyone checking out. And in 18 years that I've been watching it, I've never heard anyone say that it's shit, because it isn't. It's a 10.
Yes. Ooh. Wonderful. Bang, bang. 2 10s, Matt. Have you got a third?
Well, you'll find out, won't you?
Here we go. Ooh, tender hooks.
So trying to give the game away. Yeah, this film, loved it from the get-go, and I think it's just so far elevated above what it could have been. Like, say, I was expecting a lazy spoof, and I got so much more. Yeah. I got a film where the jokes are so well refined and so honed to precision. The horror sequences work so well, and the ability to blend them both together and to go from one to the other frequently, it just never fails to like impress me so much. And we've mentioned already, but by the time you get that third act in the Winchester, I'm so caught up, I'm so involved in these characters in a way that I just never thought I would. And the whole film, despite the fact that it's obviously quite grim in intensive parts, I just find it's just filled with joy, the joy of making a film. I know Edgar Wright didn't have the best of experience in some respect. Like, say, he fell out with his DP quite badly over it. But still, I just get this sense of a joy of a guy going, this is my film. I get to make it my way. I get to put in all the jokes that I want. I have the material to do that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the film for me, it's like I get to hang out with a best friend every time I get to watch it.
Lovely.
So for me, yes, it's a very easy 10 as well. Lovely.
3 10s. You're my best friend. I love it.
9.5.
Our fourth and final score for Shaun of the Dead comes from our trusted Patreon supporters. I have the big score right here, but first, some choice comments.
Okay.
Dean Jones said, "It's easy to forget how original it was at the time, and it put a lot of young British talent on the global map." He said, "I would give it a 9.5, but as our poll can only take round numbers, he's given it a 9.
Okay.
Wow, went down instead of up. All right, fair enough.
Kim Jackson called it a completely joyful romp and gave it 10 out of 10.
Lovely
stuff.
Short but sweet. Action Jackson.
And finally, Adam Yates said, I love this film, and although it doesn't have the wow factor of many other of my personal faves, it does exactly what it wants to do brilliantly. It may be the greatest comedy horror of all time. 10.
Nice.
Brilliant. So gathering all of our Patreon scores together and getting an average out of 10, what do you think Shaun of the Dead scored, fellas?
9.5. No, it's only round number. I'd say 10. Fuck it.
Well, we may not be able to take 0.5s on the poll, but we'd certainly take 0.5s when we do our average score, so this could be a 0.5.
Right, so it's a 9.5.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. I reckon 9.5 as well. Not quite a full 10.
Okay, well, it scored a rather disappointing 8.5 out of 10.
8.5?
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I was surprised. I was
Very
expecting
surprising.
a higher score, if I'm honest. Shame.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Hey, but you know,
okay.
That's their opinion.
Opinions vary.
So with ours and the Patreon scores combined, that leaves Shaun of the Dead with a score of 38.5 out of 40. Still a big one.
That's
Helped
huge.
us in no way by our 310s.
Massive.
Yeah. You can go to alltherightmovies.com/leaderboard to see where Shaun of the Dead fares against all the other films that we've covered so far on the podcast in the last 2.5 years. Ticking along nicely now, fellas. Been established now.
Established, yeah.
As mentioned, you can sign up to be an ATRM Patreon supporter by visiting patreon.com/alltherightmovies. You get access to all of those podcasts mentioned at the top, have a say in what films that we cover and the score that they get, and we'd be very happy if you did that.
Yes, please.
Oh, over the moon.
That'd be awesome.
Over the moon.
Join us again on All the Right Movies. Staying on a horror tip in 2 weeks' time, Matt, P.I. and myself will be talking about a film that revived the horror genre in the 90s. It's Scream.
Brilliant.
I'm happy that it won the poll, Matt. You?
I am. You can tell you are the one doing all the podcast episodes now because it's just horrors. Maybe the occasional gritty 70s thriller in New York will be thrown in there.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to that one, though. That's going to be great. What a fucking film. Fantastic.
Oh, it is. It'll be great to get into
great.
loads of stuff to talk about.
Excellent.
It'll be a whole heap of fun.
A lot more references in that film as well.
Yes.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Where's Wright?
We've got the finger on the pulse. It's relevant because the recent fifth installment of the franchise just released. We'll be talking
totally.
about
It's
that.
perfect time to do it.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We tried that with the Matrix, but the new Matrix is fucking dog shit, so it was pointless. This will be better.
Our most recent Patreon exclusive podcast is on Big Trouble in Little China and Tombstone. The three of us here recorded that a couple of weeks ago, or it was last week, and we had some big laughs. So if you aren't already, sign up to be an ATRM Patreon supporter to listen to that and all other episodes instantly. Great episode, that one.
Just worth it just for that one. I mean, two very similar movies.
Yeah, identical.
Yeah, it's the same thing. We'll just talk about the same thing twice.
Substitute Chinatown for the Old West and then you got the same film.
You were there.
Exactly.
On top of all of that, we've got another episode of ATRM Meets out next week. Brendan Benson is on the show to talk about 5 of his favourite films. I'm sure you know Brendan. He's a solo artist. He's part of the rock group The Raconteurs with Jack White.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. So tune in for that in a week's time. And in between all of that, you can check out our daily content across social media. On Twitter, we are at ATRightMovies. Instagram, we are at @all_rightmovies. Search All the Right Movies in Facebook for our Facebook group. TikTok, we are at All the Right Movies. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got loads of videos going up there, and they're going up regularly as well. And our website is alltherightmovies.com. So we are off now for a cold pint. Hopefully there aren't a lot of drug nuts out there running wild.
If not, we'll just wait for it all to blow over. It'll be fine.
After we'll just run it under a cold tap.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
We had our injections when we went to the Isle of Wight, Barbara.
Fantastic. Very good. Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.